Good afternoon and Happy New Year. This is the January 8th meeting of the Oakland Unified School District Board of Education. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, so the attendance roll call: Student Director Smith-Dahl, Student Director Garibo, Director Ng,
Here.
Director Hinton-Hodge,
Present.
Director Yee,
Here.
Director Torres, Director Harris, Vice President Gonzalez, President London. Quorum present.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to recess into closed session where we will be discussing labor matters, legal matters, public employee matters, public employee performance evaluations, and pupil matters. We will reconvene at 5:30. We are now recessed to closed session. Thank you. If I could have board members on the dais, please. We want to begin the meeting. Good evening and Happy New Year. This is the January 8th, 2020 meeting of the Oakland Unified School District Board of Education. We are returning from closed session there is no reportable act. Oh, excuse me. Wait.
We have to have first.
Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. On the attendance roll call: Student Director Smith-Dahl, Student Director Garibo, Director Ng,
Here.
Director Hinton-Hodge, Director Yee, Director Torres,
Present.
Director Harris, Vice President Gonzalez will not be with us this evening. She had planned to participate remotely, but cannot due to a power failure. And President London.
I am present.
Quorum present.
Thank you. I would now like to report out of closed session for January 8th, 2020. Please note that this information is being offered to provide greater transparency, is made at my discretion, and is more than required by the Brown Act. On labor matters, the board received a report on labor matters and we discussed labor matters. Legal matters, the board received a report and we discussed legal matters.
Do item by item, so on item C2.
Okay, excuse me. This is a new process for all of us, so I'm going to start over on the report out from closed session. Labor matters. On item C1, number 191555, conference with labor negotiators. The board received a report and discussed this matter. Legal matters. On item C2, number 020502, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. The board received a report on this matter and discussed this matter. On item C3, number 19-2275, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. The board approved a settlement in this matter, resolving a government claim filed against the district. There was a motion by Director Hinton-Hodge and a second by myself. On item C4, number 192, and the vote was London, yes. Gonzalez abstain because she's not here. Ng, yes. Harris, yes. Hinton-Hodge, yes. Torres, yes. Yee, yes. On item C4, number 192493, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, the board did not take up this matter. On item C5, number 192662, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, the board approved a settlement resolving the claims raised in this matter. We had a motion from Director Hinton-Hodge, a second from Director Yee. All board members voted in favor except Director Gonzalez, who is not here. She's absent. Public employee matters. On item C6, number 19-1488, public employee discipline / dismissal / release. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Subdivision B, the board approved in closed session the filing of charges to dismiss a certificated employee. And the motion on that was a motion from Director Harris, a second from Director Yee. All board members voted in favor except Director Gonzalez, who is absent. Finally, on item C7, number 191493, public employee discipline dismissal release. The board approved a settlement in this matter and accepted the resignation of a classified employee of the district. Motion from Director Yee, second from Director Ng. All members voted in favor except Director Gonzalez, who is absent. Oh, and there's one more. Pupil matters. On item C10, expulsion appeal hearings. The board heard these matters and will vote on them in public in section V, as in Victor, on our agenda later today. Thank you. So that is the report out from closed session. We had our roll call. Sorry, I'm looking at the agenda. And item H, our oath of office and meeting norms for the Board of Education. We solemnly affirm that we will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, and the Charter of the City of Oakland, and will perform the duties of a school board director to the best of our ability. Our meeting norms: we honor the time, act as a collective body, check for understanding, share divergent views, celebrate successes and each other's contributions, presume positive intent, and we do not engage in personal attacks. I'm very excited now to move to item I, special orders of the day. We had amazing news in December that 3 of our elementary schools have been named as California Distinguished Schools for the 2020 school year. So we are very excited this evening to honor Crocker Highlands, Cleveland, and Lincoln Elementary Schools. Congratulations. We have resolutions for each school, and so different board members are going to read them. I think what we'll do is we'll read the resolution. We'll have the board take a photo with the folks who are here from that school. Then we'll move on to the next one. We really appreciate all of you coming out tonight and supporting our great work. So we're going to start with Cleveland and can we have a motion, please, to approve these resolutions honoring the 3 California Distinguished Schools?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Yee, seconded by Director Ng. Let's call the roll and then we'll read the resolutions.
Public speakers.
Public speakers. Let's read we're going to read the resolutions first, and then we'll do the photos, and then we'll go to public comment. Yeah. So Director Yee, we're going to have you start with Lincoln. I mean, with Cleveland, excuse me.
Thank you very much, President London, and I'm delighted to be able to read this resolution. Just as a matter of personal privilege, I taught at Cleveland Elementary School through the first 10 years of my career in the Oakland Public Schools, and I'm delighted to be part of their ongoing community. Whereas Cleveland Elementary School, led by Principal Peter Van Tassel, was recognized by State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurman in December of 2019 as a California Distinguished School. And whereas out of 323 schools so honored, the Department of Education highlighted Cleveland as an example in its statewide press release, saying it serves the very diverse and historically underserved city of Oakland, with a large percentage of students living in poverty and a large percent of English learners. Whereas Cleveland's ongoing mission focuses on academic achievement and feelings of connectedness of African American students, English language learners, and students with disabilities. And whereas with a diverse student body, the school community united to identify what they wanted to build a community around, the shared values of inclusiveness and responsibility. And whereas the Distinguished Schools program recognizes schools based on performance and progress on state indicators, including test scores, suspension rates, conditions, and climate. Whereas this is the second time in a row that Cleveland has won this biennial recognition, the last time being in April of 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Oakland Unified School District and Kyla Johnson Trammell, Superintendent of Schools, acknowledges and honors Cleveland for outstanding service to the students of Oakland.
Thank you. Do you want to say a few words? Mr. Van Tassel, if you'd like to, wait, Gary, Director Yee, let's wait, let's let the principal say a few words and then we'll come down for a photo. If you don't want to say anything, you don't have to, but we'll take comments after all that, after the resolutions.
It is truly an honor and a pleasure to serve the city that I grew up in and the schools that I grew up in. It's really, this is going to sound weird, but a lifetime dream to be an elementary school principal in my city. And to be able to receive an award like this on behalf of my school and our school community in front of my daughter and my colleagues and all the wonderful parents here. It's great to work together with everybody in here. Thank you all.
No, what we're gonna do is we're gonna read the resolutions, have some feedback, have some comments from the schools, do the photos, and then we'll go to public comment, and then we'll vote. So if you want to go ahead, Director Hinton Hodge, with Lincoln. Thank you. We did the motion.
Wonderful. So it is with great honor and privilege that I get to, everyone says, Lincoln in your district? No, it is not. But for many of the Asian American community members of District 3, they get to take a quick little walk sometimes right across the freeway and go to Lincoln to a school that is culturally appropriate and language appropriate for them to learn in. And so I'm proud to be a part of Lincoln in that way, and also to acknowledge my colleague, Director Yee, and his lovely, beautiful wife, Carolyn Lee, who is a part of the Lincoln community. So, in honoring Lincoln Elementary School as a 2020 California Distinguished School, whereas Lincoln Elementary, led by Principal Mukata Sambrani, was recognized by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, in December of 2019. Lincoln staff consistently focuses on meeting the needs of every one of the school's diverse students academically, socially, and emotionally through multi-tiered systems of support, enjoys the success that shows in student outcomes. Whereas Lincoln's success depends on the school's steady support of its parents and guardians through the Golden Dragon Project, which values excellence, community, and creativity. And whereas this distinguished school program recognizes schools based on performance and progress in the state indicators, including test scores, suspension rates, conditions of climate, elementary schools and middle schools are recognized in alternate years, thereby awarded this title for 2 years. And so, therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Oakland Unified School District, Kyla Johnson Trammell, the Superintendent of Schools, acknowledges and honors Lincoln Elementary for outstanding service to the students of Oakland on this day, January 8th, 2020.
Thank you.
I'm really honored and moved.
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Mukta Sambrani. I am the new principal of Lincoln Elementary. Lincoln has an amazing history, and I'm so proud to be honored to hold this position. There have been many amazing leaders before me, including Caroline Yee. Lincoln had this honor in the year 2008, and 12 years later, we have re-earned this honor. I'm so proud of our students and our staff and their consistent hard work for equity and excellence, and our community's focus on collaboration, acceptance, respect, and empathy that makes this work happen year after year. Thank you so much, Board of Directors. I have some of our lovely students here, and they are thrilled. So I'm going to have them come up to the mic and say their names. We'll start with you. Say your name, Lucas. And your grade. Name and grade.
Name is Lucas, and my grade is 4th grade.
My name is Aiden, and I'm in 2nd grade. My name is Kiyu, and I'm in 1st grade.
My name is Sylvie, and my grade is 2nd grade. My name is Prathana, and I am in 5th grade.
My name is Lily, and I'm in 5th grade. My name is Tenzin, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Oliver, and I'm in 7th grade. I was holding it the whole time.
Jump in? Okay. All right.
Director Ng is now going to read the resolution for Crocker Highlands.
Thank you. So I have the great pleasure of honoring Crocker Highlands, making their way up here right now. So honoring Crocker Highlands Elementary School as a 2020 California Distinguished School. Whereas Crocker Highlands Elementary School, led by Principal Jocelyn Keller, was recognized by State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, in December of 2019 as a California Distinguished School. And whereas Crocker Highlands was given the honor because of its academic achievements, reduction of the opportunity gap, and positive climate and culture as an intentionally welcoming and joyful place for all kids. And whereas Crocker Highlands adults regard all students as our kids, and they always work together on their behalf, and the school offers academic, social, and emotional programs to support students most in need. And whereas Crocker Highland benefits from high levels of parent and community involvement, providing a collaborative effort between faculty, staff, and families to support student growth. And whereas the Distinguished Schools Program recognizes schools based on performance and progress on the state indicators, including test scores, suspension rates, and conditions and climate. Elementary schools and middle and high schools are recognized in alternate years, therefore awardees hold the title for 2 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Oakland Unified School District, Kylan Johnson Trammell, Superintendent of Schools, acknowledges and honors Crocker Highland Elementary School for outstanding service to the students of Oakland. Congratulations to Jossie and the whole team at Crocker.
Thank you. I have the pleasure of having Karen Jang, who has worked at Crocker since 1993, with me. and Mr. Rene Ponder, who's been with us for about 4 years. He's now one of our special education teachers who always dreamed of working in Oakland Public Schools. He's a product of Oakland Schools too. So I'm thrilled to be here with these two fabulous colleagues, and really proud of the students and all of the people who work at our school and with our school. It is absolutely a community effort. What we do doesn't happen without everyone working super hard, caring about the kids, and the kids caring about each other. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
I am informed by Ms. Floyd that there are no speakers on this item, so at this point we will call a roll call, please, on special orders of the day, item 19-2678. Edgar, roll call? Roll call on this item, please.
On the motion to to adopt recognition of the three schools, Director Ng,
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Director Torres, not here, Director Yee,
Yes.
and President London.
Yes.
The motion's adopted.
Great. At this point, we're moving to item J, submission of speaker cards and modifications to the agenda. I will note that we are going to be pulling until the first meeting in February, item S6 20-0006, which is the 2020 district principles and state legislative priorities. We agreed on that at our retreat on Monday. I also want to, at this time, welcome back Director Ng and congratulate you on the birth of your son. We're very excited for you. I also want to note that our last 5 regular school board meetings have been disrupted by protesters. We are now at another meeting where the protests may continue. I want to reiterate that this board deeply respects the will of our community to vehemently disagree with the decisions that the board makes. This is a cornerstone of our democracy, and it is critical to the success of any local government. There are many people who are here for the business of the district tonight. We want to be able to conduct the meeting in this room with the folks who have come to participate in our meeting. As we have done at prior meetings, we will need to leave the stage and move upstairs if anyone disrupts this meeting, either by physically approaching the stage or by otherwise making it impossible for the board to conduct the business of the district. By making sure that our board meetings take place, we are simply doing what needs to be done in order for facilities to be built and maintained, students to have the supports that they need to succeed, and employees to have the proper permits and credentials to serve our students. Lastly, for members of the community, please note that you can access the bathroom through the doors in the back corner.
You can't get back in, because the door was locked when I did that.
We will ensure that the door remains open. Thank you. Yes, there are people at this very minute who are working on that. So at this point, are there any other modifications to the agenda in addition to the one that I named around the holding the legislative platform? Okay. At this point, our student board members are not here, so I do not believe they have a report. President's report, I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. We have a lot of work to do this year, and I'm excited for the work that we are about to do. I also want to note that even as we are meeting tonight, Australia is burning as a result of climate-related fires that have been induced by our changing climate. And I want to keep the people of Australia in our mind, as well as the people of Puerto Rico, who are without power due to an earthquake. And I'm proud of the work that we are doing to help our students graduate climate literate, and as a district take the right steps to not contribute further. That's the President's report. At this point, I will turn it over to you, Superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you all for being here for another meeting. Thank you very much. In the spirit of keeping some recognition going, I wanted to offer a special recognition for a very special teacher who has served our district for not 10, not 20, not 30, but 40 years. And so we wanted to give her some special love. And so I asked our Deputy Chief of Talent, Tara Gard, to add just some specific information about our teacher from Franklin, Miss Montez. So she served the community for 40 years. She's a bilingual teacher, Miss Edith Montez, and she is known for just being a wizard and expert in just creating a loving community, both for her students and families, and just being a collaborative staff member. So she was hired in 1979 and is very beloved, well-known, and so we wanted to lift her up because that's just an incredible amount of commitment to our district and to the students. That's generations of education that she's contributing towards. So I would like Tara to just provide some more highlights of Ms. Montez, and we look forward to actually going and honoring her in her classroom sometime this month.
Yes. Good evening, board, superintendent, and community. It's important for everyone to know that Edith Montez has not only worked for the district for 40 years, but she's also a graduate of Oakland Tech, and she attended Laney College. She later graduated from Cal State Hayward with a bachelor's degree in bilingual education and a minor in Spanish. And I want to also mention she wanted to be here tonight. She can't be, but that doesn't stop us from checking in on her and seeing her at her school site, so I would encourage us all to do that. She began her career, like the superintendent said, in October of 1979. In her early years, she worked as a substitute and instructional assistant at Hamilton Junior High and then later at Fremont High. In 1981, she became a bilingual teacher and has spent most of her career at Franklin Elementary as a kindergarten teacher. She also participated in reading recovery in English and Spanish for over 5 years. Ms. Montez shared that she was awarded a stipend in the beginning of her career that helped her to fulfill the teaching credentials that she needed to through the district, and she has stayed here because she loves the community and she loves her students, and she plans to be here for many more years teaching kindergarten at Franklin. Superintendent Johnson Trammell and I will be at her classroom on Monday to give her a service pin of 40 years. And again, I would encourage us all to check in on her. She's quite happy to be recognized today. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the superintendent report. At this point, we're on item N, which is comment by our collective bargaining units. If any of the leaders of our collective bargaining units are here, this is the opportunity in the agenda for you to address the board. Are there any of our union leaders here tonight? Okay, it doesn't appear that there are. We're now on item O, which is public comment on the agenda items that we have heard so far. Do we have any speaker cards?
We have 3 speakers: Michael Lowton, Ben Tapscott, Asala Olabala, and I'm sorry, we have Mike Hutchinson as well.
Thank you. If the speakers could come forward. Ma'am, you have a speaker card in for items that are not on the agenda. This is for items that we've addressed so far in the agenda. Thank you. We come to that item at 7:30.
Love life. I've got to stop with this issue of being able to use the bathroom. This is the third meeting that I had to request that the bathroom be made available. I went to the bathroom outside. I'm banging on the door to get back in. The superintendent's report, the president's report, and the student's report, I would appreciate if those would be made available in the agenda. Any comments? Because I read the agenda, and I want to be prepared to respond to any comments you make. So far, I haven't been able to do this because the reports have not been, the superintendent more frequently than others has had her reports, but the president's reports have not been in the agenda. I requested, Madam President, Monday, that you do a report that will reflect how you intend to be a leader in terms of bringing this community back together. I requested that you come up with some method or procedure, because right now we are in turmoil, mostly because of your decision about Kaiser and your other decisions to close schools. You have to address, if you can't do it, somebody on this board has to address how we're going to bring this community back together. And to just read a simple bunch of rules about what the community members can't do is not going to be the reason or the solution of how we create cohesive collaboration. It can't happen without somebody coming up with a method, a procedure, a way of building this community again, and this relationship that right now is non-existent. So I'm waiting for I'll be at the next meeting waiting for the president of the board to tell me how you're going to build a relationship with this community.
Thank you.
Dr. Howard, and I'm here on behalf of, I have a family member that's disabled, and they're from a charter school. And the thing of it is, the charter schools, they have a lot of bullying going on there, a lot of discrimination, and a lot of threats. And my grandchild has been beaten on 2 or 3 times there. The school never calls us when my grandson is hurt, but they're quick to call his doctor to tell a doctor he's no longer eligible for special ed. And also, they're trying to close a lot of these Oakland public schools down. Somebody needs to investigate these charter schools because there's too much going on up in there. They allowed my grandson to go behind the counter and take an ice pack and apply it to his own wound. And I need some help. I'm filing a complaint on the state. They're not doing anything. I've been trying to get in contact with Tony Thurman. They won't let me meet Tony Thurman. I hear you guys speak a lot of Tony Thurman up there. Can somebody be so nice and kind and give him my number and ask him to give me a call? Or can somebody give him my number to give me a call? Because there's too much going on. There's too much going on. These charter schools need to really be looked into. It's sad. A child shouldn't have to go to school and be bullied and don't want to go to school no more from being beat up. And the state and nobody else ain't doing nothing about it. Don't take advantage of a child's disability. They still have a right.
Ma'am, if you can wait over here, if you can wait over to the side over there, we're asking our staff to come down and talk with you.
Thank you so much. You guys make it a blessed night on purpose.
Thank you.
I cannot believe a public building paid for by taxpayers, including the bathrooms, and you lock the doors? That's insane. Those are public bathrooms that belong to Oakland Public Schools, and we are part of the public. And you're locking the doors? Crazy. I appreciate the people that got recognized. McClymonds High School has set history. For 3 years, that football team has played in the state final. It's never been done before. I won the first state basketball title. We had a parade and got recognition. Where is Mac's recognition? Superintendent, the person from West Oakland, why haven't they been presented to the city? We still have a lead problem at McClymonds. I brought that to your attention 3 years ago. Why can't we get $90,000 and repipe the school? We can pay $4.6 for the penthouse on 1000 Broadway. I had the opportunity to go to Oakland High the other day for lunch. Why is their lunch different than the lunch at Mac? They're all public schools. I don't understand where the equity is. Charter schools have setback integration 50 years. And now we are more segregated than we've ever been before because we can't integrate our schools or don't choose to, and more schools is not the solution.
Good evening. I would like to respond to the President's report and the idea that she wished everybody a Happy New Year. Well, we would like to wish you a Happy New Year too, and often with Happy New Year celebrations come resolutions. And we have a resolution from you, those of us from Oakland Not For Sale. And we hope you take this seriously, we hope you consider it, and we hope you know that this is in the betterment of your community and for our children. I will start the resolution. It's called Statement Against School Closures and Privatization of Public Education. Whereas all students have a right to a quality public education.
Whereas over the last 15 years, this Board of Education has voted to close 18 public schools and has permitted 16 privately run charter schools to open and operate in their place. And whereas school closures do not save money, OUSD staff has previously admitted as much, and neither the Board of Education nor OUSD staff can provide any evidence to the contrary.
And whereas, notwithstanding the financial harm caused by school closures, this Board of Education and OUSD staff often attempt to justify decisions to close schools by pointing to OUSD's repayment obligations under the $100 million loan imposed on the OUSD by the state of California in 2003. But closing schools only exacerbates the issue because privately run charter schools drain OUSD resources but do not contribute to the repayment of OUSD's purported debt.
Whereas by closing public schools and permitting privately run charter schools in their place, this Board of Education has caused a steady drain of approximately $57 million annually from traditional public schools.
Whereas school closures provide no academic benefit to students, and neither the Board of Education nor Oakland Unified School District staff can provide evidence to the contrary.
Whereas privately run charter schools decline to teach students with special education needs at the same rates as public schools, leaving traditional public schools with fewer resources to serve the disproportionate numbers of special education students rejected by the charter industry. Whereas although school closures provide no academic benefit to students, closing public schools does cause substantial disruption and trauma to students, families, and communities.
Whereas of the 18 schools the Board of Education voted to close, nearly all of them were located in and served low-income communities of color.
Whereas privately run charter schools diminish racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity in schools.
Whereas Board Policy 6006 facilitates the charter industry's siphoning of public funds to operate privately run schools.
Whereas despite the public hand-wringing about OUSD's debt to the state, when the state recently offered to defer OUSD's repayment obligations on that debt, members of this Board of Education and OUSD staff secretly scuttled that opportunity.
Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby enacts a moratorium on all currently planned, proposed, or contemplated closures or mergers of public schools, including but not limited to schools identified under consideration for closure or merger in OUSD's Cohort 2 and Cohort 3 of the Blueprint for Quality Schools, effective immediately and extending through August 2022. Be it further resolved, this Board of Education immediately rescinds Board Policy 6006. It's a new year.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, I'm not sure you heard us. Sometimes I feel like you don't listen and you don't hear intentionally. I'm going to start over. This is called the Statement Against School Closures and Privatization.
Excuse me, but the time
of
has
Public
expired. We need
Education.
to move on in the agenda.
Whereas all students have a right to
We
qualify
have heard this
for
item
public
already. We're going to be
education.
moving on to item P, which is adoption of the general consent report. Do I have an item? Do I have a motion to approve the general consent report? Moved by Director Hinton Hodge. Seconded by Director Yee. Is there any? Are there any public speakers on the general consent report? Are there any speakers on the general consent report? This meeting is now in recess. Call, please.
On the attendance roll call,
Please note who's here.
Student Director Ng.
Here.
Present.
Present.
Director Hinton Hodge. Director Yee.
Here.
Director Torres.
Present.
Director Harris. Director Hinton Hodge.
Present.
President E. London.
I am here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to resume our meeting. I would like to ask our commenters to please move aside. We have several people here who want to offer public comment on the general consent report. I would like to ask our quarrelers to please step aside so that other people can have an opportunity to address the Board of Education. We appreciate you moving aside so that other people can come forward and address the school board. Can we call the names, please, of the public speakers?
Ben Tapscott, Asala Olabala, Mike Hutchinson.
Thank you. Ben Tapscott, Asada Olabala, Mike Hutchinson, your names have been called to offer public comment on the general consent report. Please come forward. We're now on the general consent report. We are now on the general consent report. There are people who have they want to offer comment on the general consent report. The general consent report was moved by Director Hinton Hodge. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Director Yee. Do the public speakers wish to offer comment on the general consent report? This is your opportunity. Mike Hutchinson, Osada Alabala, Ben Tapscott. Okay, does Mr. Hutchinson wish to offer comment on the consent report? Thank you.
Mike Hutchinson, proud graduate of Oakland Public Schools.
embarrassed member of the Oakland community right about now. You know, it's really sad that the school board again has missed an opportunity to make a clean break with past practices. And this consent report, if nothing else, is very reflective of that. There's 57 items in the consent report. I guarantee you the school board members have not read through the 57 items. There's a lot of shocking things in this, like increase in contracts mid-year, with no controls and no explanation. But then there's changes in board policy, buried in the consent report, which is not the way the board has ever done business before, and it's not the proper use of the consent report. But two things specifically. The 2 contracts paid by grant money to bring in consultants to pilot programs at the new Central Kitchen project, a project that was one of the original Measure J projects from 2012 and is still not operational. And if you read through those contracts, it clearly says they're just going to pilot it at 3 schools for 3 years. So that means we're still 3 years away from that even being operational, at a cost that's double what it was originally projected to be. Then there's the change to the board's policy when it comes to sell and leasing public property. And it's very disingenuous that after you formed a 7-Eleven committee, now you're rewriting the rules that they're operating under. It's clear in reading that policy that many of the items that have been suggested for uses of those properties, including turning Piedmont CDC into a library, your new policy forbids the 7-Eleven committee from deciding on that and clearly states that if those were the preferred uses, the school board decides on that before you form a 7-Eleven committee. So why are you rewriting the rules midway through the process? And by your faces, I can tell that you haven't even read the policy that you're about to vote on. And this concerns the sale of our public property. This is how you do business in secret. This is the seriousness you take the job. And this is only the tip of the iceberg for how the community really feels about the job you're currently doing.
I would note that the contract that the board policy under question came through the Facilities Committee. Next speaker, please.
Love life. This is ridiculous. Do not call me up when you have not the capacity to make the meetings work the way they're supposed to work. You have 57 items on this agenda for consent approval. You have contracts and programs. Some of those programs are being extended in terms of monies. Some are being extended in terms of staff. Some are being extended in terms of hours. Some are new programs. But the question is this: all these programs or contracts, as far as services or programs, monitored and evaluated in terms of the effectiveness, and are they in compliance with the agreements or terms of those contracts? Do you have performance data to validate the increase in money that you're saying you want to give, or anything related to performance or fiscal responsibility? Are the vendors meeting the benchmarks and deliverables that are in those contracts? Under items 53, you have district ownership of owned property, and you're making a decision. This is a serious matter. It needs to be discussed with you and the public about what we're going to do with property. P54, developer's fee. I want to know how much money was collected and how much money was spent and what was that money spent on. I don't want you to rubber stamp it tonight. I want details of the accountability, the transparency, and the effectiveness of that developer's fee money. P55, college and career readiness. Now, you got this Oakland Promise mess going on, but you already have under Measure N college and career readiness, and you want to go to the voters, and you don't want to deal with Measure AA, but you better deal with it, because we're going to turn everything no at the ballot. P56.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't need to keep talking. Thank you, though.
I've called for an independent audit for 3 years. How in the world do you keep spending money when you don't know how much you got? All these contracts, all this other stuff, and you don't know how much money you have because it continues to change. We keep hearing about the loan. Where's the trustee that's supposed to be overseeing this board? If this is the best job you can do, you should all leave. All of you. It's embarrassing to hear colleagues talk about my city and our school board. They laugh at us. They said they are so disorganized that it's embarrassing when I go to meetings. How do you spend money when you don't know how much you have? Why won't you open the books? Why won't you tell the people where the money is? It's our money. It's not your money. It's our money. And then we look at performance in our schools. I told James, your experiment on charters didn't work. I looked up the word private, and it says to keep out, to restrict. Who's being hurt the most? Black students. Latinos gave up. They went and opened charter schools. When you open we have too many schools. Really? Close one and watch another charter school, and people in my neighborhood are leaving Oakland. We have 300 kids in West Oakland that have no school in their neighborhood that they have to travel. We haven't addressed that. The fact that black children don't have a school in their neighborhood. This is embarrassing.
Thank you. Let's call the roll, please, on the consent report. Please call the roll.
On the roll call for adoption of consent report number 1, Director Ng.
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Harris. President London.
Yes.
The report is adopted.
Thank you. We're now going to move to item P1, adoption of general consent report number 2. Is there a motion? Moved by Director Hinton Hodge.
Madam President.
I will second.
Yeah. Can you hold up 1 second? Comment as to why you have to recuse yourself.
I will recuse myself from this consent agenda as I am a board member with Girls Inc. of Alameda County. Thank you.
So,
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So we're going to wait for Director Torres to exit the dais before we vote on this item. Are there any public comments on this item?
I have none.
Great. Let's call it's been moved by Director Hinton Hodge, seconded by Director Ng. Let's call the roll, please.
On the motion to adopt consent report number 2, Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
Director Ng.
Yes.
Director Harris. President London.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Great. Thank you. We will come back to item Q, which is public comment, at 7:30 p.m. We have no public hearings tonight. At this point, we'll move to item S, unfinished business. The first item on our agenda here under unfinished business is item S1, 19-2224. This is the North Oakland Community Charter School petition and proposed charter renewal. I need to ask our guests to please refrain so that we can move on with the business of our meeting.
So the police can't stop them from being disruptive?
This meeting is in recess. I would like to once again reconvene the meeting. We have about 50 people in the audience who are here for the business of the school district. They are here to hear the meeting. If these protesters will not respect the business processes, we will have to relocate our meeting to a different room. I'm respectfully asking you to please let the meeting proceed in this space. Once again, I am respectfully asking you to please let this meeting continue in this space. All right, we are in recess. We will resume the meeting from a secure location. Yes, unfinished business. Actually, before we take up these items, we're going to move to item S5, which is the Coliseum College Preparatory Academy Temporary Enrollment Priority. This is a second reading. If I could ask the staff to come forward and give us the update. Hopefully this will be a brief item.
Thank you, President London. As you mentioned, this is the second read and vote for a temporary enrollment priority for CCPA to prioritize students from 3 nearby Oakland Housing Authority sites, as well as students attending Futures. We have some folks here to speak quickly on behalf of this proposal who weren't able to be present for the first read. I'll let them introduce themselves and speak briefly.
Wait, excuse me, before you continue, we need a motion and a second, if we could, board.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board, Madam President, Superintendent. My name is Lee Thomas. Tonight I'm here not as a representative of UIS as president, but as the community school manager for Futures Elementary School. And I would just like to say that it is very important that we prioritize the students at Future Elementary School to have priority to be able to go to this school. It keeps our kids locally, it keeps them in the neighborhood. It also allows us to continue to support them with attendance so we don't have them traveling outside of their neighborhoods. This also allows us to the relationships that they built with us at our school, keeping them close to us to be able to support the neighboring schools in case they need to come back and get additional support from us or get any kind of background how we can support the student and the family.
Good evening, Board. Jerome Gordine, Director of Targeted Strategy, Student Achievement. Just want you to know last year is a very intentional effort between CCPA and our office. Matter of fact, Nicole Wiggins, who was a real central figure in recruiting the kings and queens in the nearby neighborhoods to go to CCPA, and some of those that went to Roots was downstairs, but she had to leave because she couldn't get up here. Just really impressed with, after this first year, the level of work that CCPA has done to intentionally not only welcome the African American families and community, but to really support them. I have met with a board member and showed her 3 pages of a level of intentionality and work that's been done with those students and those families, from student support groups being identified, also family support groups, intentional family integration. Matter of fact, next week on the 15th will be a CCPA open house. So we definitely want to move towards continue to make CCPA much more diverse as it is now. Very proud to say it's close to a 30% African American in the 6th grade, and has helped to already change the culture of the school for not just the students and the families, but also the teachers and the community. So, you know, when the Roots thing happened, and you said you wanted to make sure that those families are prioritized, that's what happened to the best of our abilities. And now you want to extend that to the Futures Q's community, in which we do have a relationship with them. In particular, there is the AMA, Kings and at Futures Q's, as well as now as CCPA. That's working together.
Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions at this time? Director Yee, let's do 3 minutes, please, for each board member.
Okay.
If we need to come back around, we can.
I really appreciate Mr. Gourdin's data report, and the 2 data points, one of them, which is promising practice of the 30% in the 6th grade. I just need to be, I would appreciate it if we could get, how does the 6th grade last year, the 20-day count, compared to the 6th grade this year? I mean, I think that's a really important message to the community. And also, if we could get an overall 20-day count from last year to this year with the ethnic diversity, I think those 2 are very simple data points. And I think that would be really impressive for us to understand the impact of the conscious decision-making. This doesn't even have to do with necessarily the quality, how many people are staying, and all the rest of it. Just a pure data point on those 2. Would that be possible?
Do you want us to get that for you before the vote?
No,
Just
I would like a date certain though for those
sure.
2
Yes,
data points.
absolutely.
Can you give me a date certain?
Yes, we can do that by next week.
By next week.
Next Wednesday,
So like
next
by
Friday.
next Wednesday.
Yeah, sure. Next
Okay,
Wednesday.
thank you very much.
Yes, of course.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, is there any public comment? Oh, excuse me, Director Hinton Hodge.
So I actually didn't hear a lot of data points. So could you talk about the number of students? Can you talk about the number of students that are coming out of the public housing development that's there? Like, maybe I missed it, and maybe I'm not, and I'm definitely not reading anything in front of me, so would you mind, just for the record, kind of talking about those numbers?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers on the, because it's not something that we currently track in our systems if they're in that housing authority, and so I don't have the numbers, and the principal isn't
Do you know
here.
that we have a relationship with housing authority?
Yes.
Okay, so we should be able to talk about the number of kids.
44 kids.
Oh, thanks.
So that's from the last report I looked at, it was 44.
It's 44 kids that are coming from that development. And of Future and Q's kids, do we know what that population is?
There are 2 biggest feeders. There are 2 largest feeders.
You can introduce yourself.
My name's Amy Cruz. I'm the principal of CCPA.
I had another question, but I forgot.
Okay, are there any public speakers on this item, Ms. Floyd?
Stay very comfortable. You gotta go. You need to come get the cards. They're down here.
I have David Volker, Ben Tapscott, Asada Olabala, Mike Hutchinson.
We'll do 1 minute. Thank you.
Love Life. Proposition 209, approved in 1996, prohibits in the state constitution government institutions from considering race, sex, or ethnicity, specifically in areas of public employment, public contracting, and public education. You cannot, it is illegal for you to consider race, sex, or gender equity in any form. It is illegal according to your state constitution. You do not have the right to mandate that any school come up with race balancing. You can't do it. Now that's your state constitution. Jerry Brown vetoed the opportunity to appeal Proposition 209 in 2011. In 2014, another attempt was made, and the Asian American community put a stop to it.
Thank you.
You
Your time has
cannot
expired.
legally request any kind of race balancing.
Thank you.
Don't
Next
thank
speaker,
me.
please.
It's ridiculous, but that's your state constitution.
Can we have the next speaker, please? Okay. If you would like to offer public comment on this item, now is the time. Okay. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, on the roll call to adopt the item as stated. Director Ng,
Yes.
Director Yee,
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge,
Yes.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Harris, President London.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. At this point, we will move back now to item S1. So, colleagues, we have before us several items related to charter schools, and some of them are unfinished business, and then there are some items in new business that accompany the unfinished business. So we're going to be jumping back and forth a little bit in the agenda so that we can take them up in groups. The first one is going to be item S1, which pertains to the North Oakland Community Charter School. And depending on how the vote goes on that, we will then move to item T2. So just be ready. So we're now going to take up item S1, 192224. This is the North Oakland Community Charter School petition and proposed charter. It's approval, recommendation for approval from our staff. Is there a motion to approve? I will move approval. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Harris. We welcome our staff. If you could please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Craig Arnold, Policy Specialist with the Office of Charter Schools.
And Yvette Renteria, Deputy Chief of Innovation.
I'll start by going over our renewal standards, which have remained the same from the previous presentations for charter school renewals. But there are 3 criteria for renewals. The school is academically sound, the school is demonstrably likely to be able to implement the proposed program, and the school's plan for a future charter term are reasonably comprehensive. The staff report included evidence from the school quality review, which was based off of a 2-day site visit that included classroom observations as well as interviews with students, teachers, families, school leader, and the charter board. It also includes an analysis of the charter schools, comparison schools, and comparison student groups. The school performance analysis, which is a tool to assess state dashboard data and core growth, and an examination of the school's operation and compliance. And additionally, we are required to consider academic performance as a most important factor in determining renewal. We have a 2-part recommendation. We recommend approval accompanied by the approval of the signed MOU. The agreement is a separate agenda item, but it's an agreement from the Knox board to self-close after the 2nd year of this charter term, unless 2 conditions are met. The first being that they close their middle school at the end of this school year, and the second are specific academic improvement standards for this school year and the following school year. So therefore, with the inclusion of this MOU, we believe that the school has met all 3 standards for renewal. We've called out the strengths and challenges for all charter schools that are up for renewal this year. For Knox, some of the strengths include they've performed at or above all of their elementary school comparison schools for the duration of their charter term. They've had strong performance among Latinx students, substantially outperforming the district average. Their demographics have shifted over the course of this charter term to become more similar to those of OUSD. Specifically, the proportion of low-income students more than doubled, and there have been substantial increases in African-American students and students with disabilities. Some of the challenges that we noted: there have been significant declines in the math and ELA proficiency rates for the test scores. Academic performance in the middle school is a concern, and there's been inconsistent evidence of access to rigorous tasks, especially in the middle school grades, which we saw in our school quality review, and a decline in proficiency for low-income students and students with disabilities.
As we dig into the demographics, as mentioned under the strengths, you will see in this chart the shift in demographics over the time, specifically reflecting more of our OUSD population, especially in the student groups, the African American student group, the socially economically disadvantaged student group, English learners, and special education. In these two graphs, you'll see the comparison data. So this is specifically for elementary school, comparing Knox to 6 schools. And in ELA and in math, you will find that Knox performs average within the 6 schools compared to an OUSD. This slide will show the comparison school analysis for middle school in comparison to 3 OUSD middle schools. And here you will find that in ELA and math, Knox performs below average in both ELA and math. This grid shows performance over the course of 4 years. We know that this is a 5-year renewal, but we have data for 4 years. And so we focus on the 5 student groups, African American, Latinx, special ed, low income, and English learners. What you'll find in the second column is years performed at or above OUSD. And then what you'll find in the third column is the percentage points above or below OUSD in the most recent year. So as just kind of to really dive into these, looking at our student group around African Americans, 2 of those 4 years, the African American student group performed at or above OUSD. In this most recent year, they were 2 percentage points below OUSD. This graph demonstrates enrollment over time. And here what you will find is there in the last 2 years, there's been fluctuation in both the elementary school enrollment and middle school enrollment, with elementary school enrollment showing an increase and middle school enrollment showing a decrease, and decrease overall from the start of the renewal process to the end. So that's what we have. We'll open it up to any questions or discussion.
Colleagues, any questions? Okay, if anybody in the audience would like to offer public comment, please come forward at this time and you will have an opportunity to comment on this item.
Love Life. This particular school is a school where whites have decided to leave the school, and there's been a tremendous drop in white enrollment. It's very sad that this school district constantly is being challenged by issues of race. But I did some research on what the mandate is around enrollment of children in the chartered schools. Enrolling students based on their race, ethnicity, or other characteristic is illegal. This is in the charter school documentation. While charter schools may enroll students under preferencing using things like previously enrolled within the district, racial and ethnic preference are not legal. This is according to Education Code 220 and Education Code 47605, the state of California. Now, I'm going to keep coming up here and telling you, you cannot mandate a preference for African Americans in the chartered schools in Oakland. Now, you go ahead and do it, and I hope somebody sues you behind.
Thank you.
You got to come up with a way to get rid of Proposition 209.
Thank you. Is there more public comment on this item? Please come forward.
So you are saying, Cheshire Isaacs, that you are saying plain as day that this charter school is failing low-income kids and kids with disabilities, and you're just going to rubber stamp their continuation. Because I'd be really surprised if I see any kind of dissent from this board or any kind of discussion from this board before you all kind of act in lockstep and go ahead and approve this continuation, even though your own data shows that this school is failing kids.
The next item that we take up after this will be some conditions around the approval on this school. It's a memorandum of understanding.
We have another speaker. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I just wanted to bring it to your attention again that the charter schools, what they're doing, they're pulling in a lot of money and they're not helping the special education kids. And again, I repeat to you, there's a lot of bullying and a lot of discrimination going on in these charter schools. And I don't know, the state or someone, they're allowing them to do what they want to do. These charter schools need to be audited. They're closing the Oakland public schools down and they're opening up the charter schools. This really needs to be looked into because all child, disabled, unhandicapped, or whatever, they should be able to have a right to a decent education. So hopefully somebody will look into it. Do not close down the Oakland public schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
I am a former parent of a child, 2 children who went to charter schools. And since my oldest daughter, who is now 23, though the charter school she went to, it was okay at the time. But my youngest daughter, who attended OCA just last semester, my child has ADHD and she has an anxiety disorder. That school, we sat down for a 504 plan. That 504 plan did not happen. That school was 95% Latino, and I'm not being racist towards anyone. There were students, the minimal side of those students, the minority, were not being addressed by those teachers or the owner of that school. There were teachers in that school that made racial comments
At the North Oakland Community Charter School? We're talking about the North Oakland Community Charter School.
It's not just OCA. It's all of the charter schools that you are allowing to take over Oakland public schools. Our students aren't being addressed because you sent all of our students to these schools that aren't even doing anything for them.
Okay.
The only school, only charter school in Oakland that is doing anything is that American Indian.
All right,
all the
thank
rest
you.
of those
Thank
schools
you.
are poor. Those students are doing poorly in the schools.
Thank
and
you.
you're
We need to
allowing
move
them
on with the
stay.
meeting. Thank you. We've heard your concerns. Thank you. All right. Is there any further public comment on the North Oakland Community Charter School? All right, let's call the roll, please.
On the adoption of the pending motion to renew the North Oakland Community Charter School charter, Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Torres. Yes. Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
Director Ng.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
President London.
Yes.
The motion is adopted.
Thank you. We're going to move now to item T2, which is an agreement between, I understand that, but I want to take up item T2 because it goes with this item, and then we will move to public comment on non-agenda items. Item T2 is an agreement between the district and the North Oakland Community Charter School around the operating terms and conditions for school years 2019 through 2022. We welcome back Ms. Craig-Arnold and Ms. Renteria. Thank you. Can we have a motion, please? Moved by Director Harris. Second by Director Yee.
Thank you. This is the associated MOU with the Knox approval.
Just if you could review the terms of that, I think it would be very helpful for the record to read that into the record.
Okay, so the Knox board has signed the MOU to agree to self-close after the first 2 years of the upcoming charter term if 2 conditions are not met. The first condition is that they close the middle school at the end of this school year, and the second condition is around academic improvement. They must meet 2 of 3 standards each year, or meet fewer than 2 the first year and all 3 the second year. So those 3 standards are ELA, math, and student groups. For ELA, there are 3 ways to meet the standard. In percent increase in SBAC proficiency rates, in core growth, and in dashboard color. For math, they can meet the standard in those same 3 ways. And for student groups, they have to be at or above the OUSD average in proficiency for the majority of the 5 student groups that we outlined earlier: African American students, Latino students, students with disabilities, English learners, and low income.
Great. Thank you. Colleagues, are there any questions for the staff? Ms. Hinton-Hodge.
Is that legal? Like, is this new charter law rules? What are we doing here?
This is not under the new charter law rules, but I will defer to our general counsel about the legality.
Good evening, Josh Daniels, General Counsel. This is a binding enforceable contract between 2 entities, Knox and OUSD, and therefore it's like any other contract.
But it's related to the academic performance of a charter, and we have charter law that actually speaks to, you know, autonomies, et cetera, and we approve based on the ability for them to meet XYZ standards or fiscally be sound, XYZ. So we just did that, and now we're coming in with a new contract with the nonprofit. Like, this doesn't, like, who does this?
So the previous item was a straight approval of a 5-year petition. This item would exist independent of that, and under the terms if the conditions that were read out were not met, then, and I'm not answering your question, but Knox would then voluntarily submit and close down. So, which they can do. They're as an independent.
Can you tell me precedent around this, please?
Different districts approach this differently. Some districts approach it as a conditional approval. Some districts have entered into MOUs. Some districts put a lot of additional language in what's required to be submitted under the statements of agreement. Because of the unique situation of the context in which Knox is and the conversations with charter school staff and Knox staff, this was felt that was the best sort of procedural approach given the situation.
Any other questions from board members? Director Yee.
About this particular question by Director Hodge, or just in general?
In general, this is.
Oh, in general.
This is your
okay.
turn.
Great, thanks. No, this is really for the Knox people. So I actually remember when Knox came for its initial application. I think was it 10 years ago? 20 years, wow. 20 years ago, I was actually involved on the school board around then, and this was one of the first decisions. And I remember that that it was designed around a choice school. It was basically not designed to serve a particular community. And my argument with them at the time was specifically around that. I never thought I would see the time when a choice school would decide to focus on a neighborhood or an area of population. So I just commend, first of all, the candor with which you explained some of the changes that were required or necessary, or you did as a matter of principle. And I also want to acknowledge the commitment you made in this contract to take it upon yourself as a community to self-regulate and self-assess your own capacity to serve in this particularly new way. It's quite a transformation, and I was skeptical at first, but I'm very enthusiastic about seeing if self-regulation actually leads to positive, constructive benefits for the community.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go back to Director Hinton-Hodge.
Okay. So I am not concerned about you, Knox. I am concerned about us as an authorizer in this process, because this is new. Like, I mean, I've been around long enough to know that we've kind of, at the moment of renewal, we've had conversations about, we'd like you to do this, we'd like you to do that. And it was not anything that was necessarily legally binding. And so for me, when I think about who we are as authorizers, and we don't really have a standard around that, like, so what happens if in the midst of this you feel like, I can't get to this outcome, I'm struggling, I need help? Like, is there some expectation that, like, this is a partnership, or it's just is this transactional thing of, like, you got to get this number? because really we're playing with numbers. We're not necessarily talking about quality of students or families or, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, so so I think that, yeah, we're good at compliance in some kind of way and figuring out whether or not you hit that mark or not. But this is really a school that has done tremendous work over the last 20 years that Director Yi is talking about, right? And, you know, how people will talk about it is that the white folks left and therefore the student population turned more black and brown and therefore it didn't perform as well, right? But also underneath that is like, you did some challenging work around race, right? You did some work around involving low-income families that looks different and about how they get educated. So, for me, I'm a little bit like there's a contract. I get that the middle school, that was already your idea, I know, to get rid of the middle school, but this other standard piece. I'm just really concerned about us as an authorizer. So I'm going to vote for it, obviously, to support you, but I guess I'm speaking to the charter office or the Office of Innovation, General Counsel office, superintendent. Like, what does this really mean? Like, and are more people going to come forward asking for these things? And is there, how did we get here in this particular kind of way? So, sorry if yeah, it felt way too formal, and I thought I really was behind, and I thought, is this 1505? So I was having my own, like, had not processed this very well. So I do apologize actually for not having said this to you before we got here tonight. But I would like you to think about in the future what precedent you're about to set around this.
Is there any public comment on this item? If you would like to offer public comment on the memorandum of understanding. Did we do public? No, we have not done public comment. Thank you.
An item that references the need to deal with the issue of the low performance or underperformance academically of African American children. And you have no solution to how you can do that legally. Charters are charged with developing and implementing effective outreach and recruitment plans. However, they are prohibited by law from implementing racial and ethnic enrollment practices. They are also prohibited by law from weighing in on African Americans as a subgroup because of Proposition 209. Senator Weber tried to introduce legislation that would deal with the way that African Americans are unable to have outreach to deal with their academic needs. And it failed. Twice she tried to do it in Sacramento, and it failed. You have no ability, and you're trying to make it seem like you're reaching out to help black children, but there's no legal mechanism that you can use to help black kids in the state of California.
Thank you. Any further public comment? All right, I see Mr. Cloaker, the head of school from Knox. Did you want to offer some insights?
Can I just offer a very brief public comment on the specific item here about the memo of understanding? I just want to name, and I think that the board is aware of this, and I think it's appropriate for the public to be aware of this as well, that Knox went through a pretty difficult leadership change, and I'm 18 months into my time of, I hope, many years at Knox, and I personally appreciate the opportunity to continue the work that we're doing, and I think that I have no idea how without this, the Office of Charter School would have recommended, or if the board would have ultimately voted. But for me, as a school leader, it felt like a willingness to acknowledge the hard work that we are trying to do to turn around the school. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, can we call the roll, please?
On the motion to adopt, as stated, Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Ng.
Yes.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Yi.
Yes.
And let's see, President London?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you call Director Hinton Hodge?
I'm sorry. Director, no. Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
And President London.
Yes.
Okay. The motion's adopted.
It's only 7:40.
So,
Yeah,
yes.
It's a long day. Motion's adopted.
Thank you. We are now going to go to public comment on non-agenda items. This is item O. And if you are downstairs and you would wish to offer public comment on any item that's not on the agenda tonight, now is the moment to come forward. Do we have speaker cards or? Let's call the speaker cards that we do have, and then people can also line up.
Okay, we have Laverne Howard, Jenna Stauffer, Ben Tapscott, Asada Olabala, Mike Hutchinson.
Thank you. If you're downstairs and would like to offer public comment, we welcome you. Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, Oakland Unified School District Board of Education. My name is Lottie Garrison, and I'm submitted a charter petition and renewal request on behalf of the Conservatory of Vocal Instrumental Arts Charter High School.
Thank you. We'll make sure that someone goes downstairs to retrieve that application.
Love life. I'm going to continue to talk about Proposition 209. It's not on the agenda. Proposition 209 was passed, and it is a part of the Constitution of the State of California. And it is illegal to participate in any kind of preferencing around race, sex, or gender related to public education, public contracts, or any public government entity. You know this, but you want to make it seem like you have a capacity to use your seat to do something for African American children when you cannot preference anybody by race. So this African American male achievement group, the Latino group that you have, the Asian Pacific group, by race, that's illegal according to your state constitution. I don't know how you're doing it. I'm just finding this out. I'm not from here. I'm not
Thank
here.
you.
My time's up.
Yes, it is.
I'll keep coming back until you tell me how you're going to fix Proposition 209.
Okay, thank you.
It is the state
Thank you.
constitution that you cannot do anything around preferencing race, sex, or gender.
Are there any other? Thank you. Mr. Hutchinson.
Mike Hutchinson, proud graduate of Oakland Public Schools. Since you have us in a different room, you might not be aware of this, but the speakers are turned down so low that it's hard to even hear in here. But I think it's really telling that the first meeting with this new board president didn't even last roughly 20 or 30 minutes down here before you scurried upstairs. And now there's nobody here protesting at all. Everyone's sitting calmly in their seats, and you still refuse to come down and even face the community that elected you. I've been coming to these meetings literally before I was born with my mother. The general practice is if somebody's being disruptive at the meeting, then the school board asks the police officers to go over there and ask them to stop, and if they don't, they're escorted out. But this group punishment where you treat the whole community to your absence because you feel a little bit offended is not acceptable. You were elected to represent us. You were elected to have to face the community that elected you, and this is shameful.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. Any other public comments on non-agenda items?
Good evening. My name is Jenna Stauffer. I'm the CEO and founder of Lighthouse Community Public Schools. I'm here tonight to submit to you 2 material revisions, one to Lighthouse's Charter K-8 and one to Lodestar's Charter K-12, that adds the new assurances plus looks at the admission preferences for our 2 schools. The reason for submitting these is through our Lighthouse High charter process that you'll hear and vote on later tonight. It's some really important questions were raised for us around our ability to recruit and reflect the African American demographic in our area. And so we will be submitting a material revision for those 2 schools tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone will be down to pick that up from you. Hello, welcome.
Hello. I was a student last semester at Oakland Charter Academy and as an 8th grader, and now I'm a freshman at Oakland High. And I kind of want to, and I stand here today to protest against the charter schools. When I was a new student at OCA, the standards were appalling. I came from private school and I suffer from ADHD and anxiety disorders. And I was supposed to have a 504 plan, which my mother is extremely advocating for me, and I'm a self-advocate for myself. And when we did meet with the principal, with my teachers, after months, we still got nothing. There were 10 principals in 5 years. When I went, there was no principal. That is ridiculous. How can you run a school without a principal? A principal just bones out in the middle of the year. That makes no sense. Also, they were breaking the law by having students grade other students' papers. A student broke a window, and what did the school have them do? They had the students pick up broken glass with their bare hands. There were teachers making racist comments to 6th graders. And I honestly wish I would have been there so I could have said something against it, because that's horrible. A Caucasian woman talked about black people, saying that she didn't agree with what they did because they were gang people. That is not okay. When if you think about it, the biggest gang that we have in America is the KKK, which is run by Caucasian people.
Okay, thank you. We would be happy, if you want to send us an email with your concerns, we'd be happy to review that in greater detail. Are there any further comments on non-agenda items? Okay. It appears that public comment is over. We will move now to item S2, which is 192226, approval by the Board of Education of the Lighthouse Community Charter High School petition and proposed charter from July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2025. This is a renewal application. Is there a presentation from the staff on their recommendation?
Hi, Sonali Mararka. This school's already had the presentation of our staff renewal recommendation, which is to approve. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath from running upstairs. And so we're happy to take additional questions.
Are there any questions, colleagues? Okay. Is there any public comment?
Yes. Asada Olabala.
Yes, ma'am. What school are you talking about?
We're talking about the Lighthouse Community Charter High School.
Oh, yes, indeed. Now, this school has a very, very low number of African Americans in attendance. You have asked them several times to come up with some kind of plan to deal with it. And I've been here for every meeting to hear them. It's clear that that is not something that they preference as in being important. They're being forced to do something, but I want to let them know, according to the law, Proposition 209, you are not required to come up with a preference by race, sex, or gender. Now, you can have a preference for the neighborhood. You can have a preference for staffing. You can have a preference for siblings. You can have a number of preferences in the state of California, but you cannot have preferencing as it relates to race, sex, or gender. You tell me I'm from Louisiana. I thought Louisiana was asshole backwards.
Right,
when I came here, I found out Louisiana looks very good compared to what you got going on particularly
Thank
for
you.
African American children in this city. This is like Jim Crow.
Thank you.
That's what Proposition 209 is. It's Jim Crow
Thank
all
you for
over
your
again.
comments. Are there further public comments? Colleagues, I'm reminded that we need a motion and a second on this item. Can we have a, so moved by Director Harris?
Second.
Second by Director Hinton Hodge. Oh, there's one more public comment. Welcome. Thank you, sir.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you introduce
Okay.
yourself?
Yes, my name is Leonel Gonzalez, and I'm a proud parent of 4 kids that they have go to Lighthouse Community Charter School. 3 of them have graduated from high school, 2 of them from college right now, and now I have a kid who's 14 years old facing high school for next year. So that's why I support and I ask you to approve this charter for a high school. So there is a great community, we have good teachers, and we've been going all the time in the right direction. So please approve this charter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Gaston, and I'm a parent and former teacher at Lighthouse Community Charter School. I have 2 children at Lighthouse, one in the 9th grade and one in the 11th grade, and both my children have been there since kindergarten. I think that's the first thing I'd like to highlight about our experience at this school is that while this charter renewal is for the high school, Lighthouse really functions as a K-12 school. And by the time students get to high school, they are known. And a community, really a family, has been created amongst the students and amongst the parents. The power of this model is that students are connected to adults throughout the entire campus. It's really unique and an important part about the Lighthouse experience, and one that I greatly appreciate from my children. I hear the power in this connection most clearly on what I think is the best day of the year, College Declaration Day, and I really strongly urge you to attend at least one of these days. One of these College Declaration Days. It's a time you won't forget the stories of struggle, perseverance, and love that's celebrated on that day. I've heard incredible testimonies from students, and I appreciate very much the chance that Lighthouse has given my students to learn and grow as human beings and lifelong change makers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Derek Coleman. I am a science teacher at Lighthouse Community High School, and over the past few years I've joined the teaching profession, and as anyone can tell you, it's a challenging one. So I wanted to speak this evening to the depth of my gratitude for the support I've received as a new teacher. Teaching is a career that across the country needs a lot more professional support, and I'm sure we could all agree about that, and I really appreciate how the community that we speak so often of has come together to support new teachers and middle career teachers and our experienced veteran teachers to continually grow. I appreciate also that this is my 4th year working there, I'm enmeshed in a community that loves each other, and I can leverage my relationships with alumni that are in college now, earning degrees, and to put pressure on their younger siblings that I'm teaching in the 9th grade this year. So there's a very real sense in which we take care of each other all the way around, and I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.
Mike Hutchinson, proud graduate of Oakland Public Schools. I want to point out again how insulting it is to sit down here while you're up there. You know, I think again this shows some of the major dysfunction going on with the school board and in this school district. And I understand that there's statutory deadlines for when you need to respond to requests for renewals, but a lot of us worked really hard in this past year to pass Assembly Bill 1505, an assembly bill that this school board was officially on record supporting. That bill becomes law July 1st. And within that bill, there are more requirements for charter schools going through renewals. And so the question is, why aren't we using the new law that you said you supported when deciding charter applications and renewals right now? Why do we have to wait till July 1st? And so school board members have complained for years that you don't have control, you don't have oversight. Now you do, and you won't even use it. But again, seeing that you're upstairs and you won't even face the community, it's not surprising that you don't want to help.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Hi, I'm Dr. Maya Stewart. I got my doctorate in education at San Francisco State, and I've lived in Oakland for 13 years. And this is my second year teaching in Oakland. I used to teach in Fremont. And what I can say for Lighthouse is that it's in a truly unique community that is serving the students in a way that I have been supported like I haven't been supported in public schools previously in my 18 years. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is if we get rid of all the places that are really working, consider charters as also an opportunity that it's like a science experiment where you want to see what works. And if California really does get the windfall of money we deserve from the taxes that are within this state, when Oakland gets the money that it deserves, how will you spend it? Well, having these opportunities to see how different schools use that money and how different charters choose to serve their students, you get an opportunity to see what works. So it's like getting free trials at all these different sites of what really does serve Oakland students best.
Thank you. And thanks to your helpers. Any further public comment from downstairs? I see we have public comment from the head of school.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Lara, Lighthouse High School principal. I just wanted to share that I am so proud and honored to be a part of the Lighthouse community. I'm very proud of the work that our teachers are doing to support every single student to achieve all of their goals and to be college and career ready when they graduate. All of our students at Lighthouse are achieving. And I want to share with you that as an African American leader, I work to ensure that every single student and African American students are achieving at Lighthouse. 95% of African American students at Lighthouse graduated with A through G courses completed. And we retain 96% of all of our African American students. I'm excited to serve more African American students at Lighthouse in the upcoming years and to continue to make an impact for my community and for my people, but also for all kids and every single kid and family that's at our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Isu Orundide. I am a graphic design and entrepreneurship teacher at Lighthouse. Been there 16 years, and I just wanted to add some perspective tonight. About 5 or 6 years ago, I would attend the visioning meetings, and I would be the guy who would say, you know, the question would be, in order to accomplish our mission, what do we need to do? What do we need to do better? And I would be the person always writing, our leadership, our student body, our staff needs to reflect the community we serve. And we discuss it, and I'd get tossed around and so forth. And I have to say that as a staff and as a leadership, that's become, we reflect that. And I have to give props to Lighthouse, pick up Lighthouse for handling that. But I also want to commend you, the board, for holding our feet to the fire in terms of what we have not done to make our student body reflect the community we serve. And I can say that on the ground, I see action happening. And I see small moves, if not just moves being made to affect that. Thank you.
Good evening, Jenna Stauffer, CEO. You've heard enough tonight, I think, but I just want to leave you with a couple of numbers. 454. That number is the number of students that we've graduated who are now on their way either in college or to career or having children or voting in the voting booth. And then another number, 700, which will be the number of alumni that we have if you can grant us another 5 years. People who are becoming teachers, social workers, doctors, lawyers, tradesmen, servicemen and women. And so I just look to you for another 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, is there any further discussion on this item? Director Hinton Hodge.
I think, I don't know if I was on the phone, I missed the meeting, but just again want to acknowledge Director Yee and it might have been Director Gonzalez as well, who were kind of looking at what were the root causes of, or the challenges of, right, not getting, holding your feet to the fire. But for me, and that's right, I ended up leaving that meeting because I really couldn't tolerate what was happening in community and the pushback and people yelling at me. I was done that night. And I remembered realizing that, like, I was going to have a hard time even saying yes to Lighthouse because I had been through renewals before, and I was hearing the exact same answer, that we're going to hire an outreach worker or we're going to go to black churches, and that was the way that we were going to improve in serving that population of students, right? Because in California, African-American students are the lowest performing kids in the state of California. So 209, 1505, I don't care what it is, right? Like, educators have to be dedicated to serving these kids and these families, right? And it was Gonzalez and Director Yee who I think said, well, wait, what is really getting in the way? And I'm appreciating the fact that you all kind of looked back inside your system and said, well, actually our feeder pattern is our schools, and our kids come into those particular schools maybe from other schools or what have you, but that it actually reflects a strong Latino population of students and families that are utilizing Lighthouse, right? And because of how the rules are, right, in our systems, it's difficult to break through that. So I would just want to really appreciate my colleagues for being brilliant, as well as you all for taking that on, because I know that what you brought forward, right, is to say, let's look at the rest of our system and how we can do those things. And to the person who had the public comment, I do agree that these are the spaces that we should be, like, challenging ourselves without, being punitive, frankly. Like, I don't like the energy of so much compliance, but that there should be this space around, like, well, what does it actually take and what are the barriers? And then for our system to kind of go, does that actually exist in West Oakland in some kind of way? Does it actually exist in North Oakland, that there are feeder patterns that actually make our schools maybe more segregated or serve less special needs students? Like, it's the learning, right, that I think is so critical and important. So appreciating you for that. And I am always pushing back on, like, who we are as authorizers, and I wish that it wasn't at the 4.5-year mark that we talk to one another and we impress each other and we come visit each other and we show these things to one another about what it takes to educate our children in Oakland. And so again, I hope that we could become better authorizers, better learners together around this work. So appreciating you all for your work.
Director Torres.
So, as a person who has been around Lighthouse students for probably 11, 12 years, based on my daughter playing soccer with many of your students who've graduated and moved on, and some of those students are very well known. I know you know Alicia, my daughter's half-sister almost. One of the concerns, I guess I would say, being around your students as they grow older and they become more mature and they look back at what their life is like when they get to college or just other places of looking for mentors and things, is that the student body shift was key, and I appreciate the effort and the growth, and maybe the next time the topic is going to be also increasing your Caucasian and Asian student body or something along those lines, right? But the number one thing I think that's consistent for me with students of these past years is the number of teachers who look like them, and that being something that we're all facing as a challenge with the cost of living, with gentrification being what it is in Oakland, and being able to not just stop at students, because I think the number one thing that would keep students in the school and that would make students succeed which we lack as well as a district tremendously in our, especially in our Latino community. Our numbers are the majority, but our teaching staff is about 12%, so a third of the number of students, is that you also make that effort to have your teaching force grow its diversity. And I appreciated the visit, and I appreciated the students I met and the tour I was given by the student that day. And I don't doubt that all of us are educating scholars, but what we do is we miss the opportunity to bring out the excellence and the brilliance of our students, because the petri dish they're in is too white, not enough male teachers, and then definitely not enough male teachers of color. And that's where I think our boys are unfortunately imprisoned in this society, and especially in this state. So that would be my next request of you, is that coming back in 5 years, not only have you figured out the sweet spot of whatever race, mixed race for that matter, but the teachers also reflecting, because that's going to be the biggest change for those students, more than them just seeing diversity. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further public? Director Yee.
Thank you, and thank you for the rapid adaptation of your proposal. I want to thank Director Hinton-Hodge for acknowledging. I don't recall it as being that groundbreaking, but I'll take the light and credit in it, because because what I actually see when I think about Ms. Stauffer, the founder of the school, is how resistant I was to her initial charter. And this is a kind of historic story that she'll remember. I kept asking her to stay in the school district instead of starting with the charters. And so now I think about where we are now in this renewal process. And 3 words came to mind to me. 1 is tenacity, 2 is integrity, and 3 is adaptability. And I think in this process in the last month, you've shared all 3 of those to us. You didn't back down. You weren't defensive. You actually took the random elements of comments by people like myself, and you took them seriously, and you actually led the way, which leads to Director Hodges' comment about whether feeder patterns actually influence the way we self-segregate our own schools. And I hope that as we look at our enrollment policy and our student assignment policy, that we actually take that seriously, and we look at the conversations we've been having with these 4 charter applications, and we apply the lessons learned there to our own systems. And if we did nothing else but that, the value of this renewal process would shine not only for yourselves, but for the district as a whole. So I hope in the 317 days remaining in Director Hinton-Hodges' term on the board, that we are actually able to realize the comment that she just made, and have a student assignment policy that improves our integrity and our commitment to all of our children. So that's my commitment to you, Director Hodge.
Okay.
So nice in here.
Anything else? Let's call the roll, please.
On the roll call to renew the charter of Lighthouse Community High School, Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Hinton-Hodge.
Yes.
Director Ng. Not present. Okay. Director Harris.
Yes.
And President London.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Yes. Thank you. We're going to move now to item S4, which is the material revision from Lighthouse, and this involves, I believe, their enrollment practices. No? Okay, excuse me. There's so many items. If you could just, this is the one around just getting their terms and conditions to align with the district terms and conditions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the material revision. The proposal from staff is to approve. Great. Do we need a presentation?
I was just going to
Go ahead, Ms. Maraca. And we need a motion, first of all, in a second. Moved by Director Harris.
Second.
Second by Director Yee.
Sonali Mararka. So this is a material revision, as you mentioned, to the Statement of Assurances section of the Lighthouse High School renewal petition. Our staff recommends approval. The school inadvertently included the California State Statement of Assurances rather than the OUSD Statement of Assurances in their petition submission. So this material revision would update the Statement of Assurances to match OUSD's.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Any public comment? This would be the time. Thank you.
Love Life, point of clarification. What assurances are you getting in this document? It's just a statement of assurances. What are the insurances you're talking
Excuse
about?
me, Ms. Olabaya, we're going to ask you to start again because the microphone has not been turned up.
Love Life. What are the assurances that you are voting on? Just to say a statement of insurances doesn't get public comment of any significance because I don't know what you're talking about. So could the presentation deliver what the assurances are that you are voting on?
Sure, we can restate those for you if you'd like to hear them. Ms. Mararka, if you don't mind.
The OUSD Statement of Assurances is available on the OUSD Charter's website. There are 53 statements of assurance, so I won't read them all, but they include, for example, that the charter school will not charge tuition for any students, that they will enroll students who submit an application in a timely manner, using a lottery if necessary, and so forth.
Excuse me. I'm familiar with that document, so you do not have to do that. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I was able to read that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, having read all of that, there is no assurance in that document that states that African American children are going to be able to be successful in their academic pursuits. So we still, as explained by one of your members, African American children are the lowest performing group in the state academically, and there is no solution that has been brought forward to deal with that need. LCAP deals with children in certain groups, but you can't deal with black children. So no assurance. I read all 50-something of those, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but there's nothing. In this particular school, black children have not been successful.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments.
And you cannot mandate that they make black children have success.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
The roll call to adopt the material revision for Lighthouse. Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
Director Ng is absent, and Vice President Gonzalez is absent. Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
And President London.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. We will move now to item S3, 19-2227. This is the Oakland School for the Arts petition and proposed charter renewal, grades 6 through 12. Thank you. Please come forward. And can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved by Director Hinton Hodge, second by Director Yee.
Thank you, Sonali Mararka. The school had their public hearing in November and a decision meeting in December where we presented our staff recommendation for renewal. Based on board feedback at that decision meeting, we have a separate agreement that is on the agenda today for board consideration that requires OSA to join the Common Charter Application Platform. And so we can take questions now if there are any.
Colleagues, any questions? Director Yee.
Does this affect at all the commitment that OSA made to adjust the auditing requirement in the press?
This does not affect you mean the audition process?
Right.
Yes, this does not affect that, and the separate agreement that will come forward is aligned to their timeline for phasing out their audition. So With every grade where they phase out the addition, they will simultaneously be joining the common charter application for that grade level.
So those two are in lockstep?
Correct.
Thank you.
Director Hittenhodge, did you have a question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reginald Ray Savage. I have been at Oakland School for the Arts with a lot of pride and a lot of thankfulness for the effort that it shows every day. I've been there 16 of the 17 years that the school has existed. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of our administration, and I would back up any and every teacher there as far as the work and the effort that we all put in. Because I know for a fact I work 7 days a week there based upon the fact that I like to keep teaching, and all the kids that need the extra work. I am a co-chair for the dance department with my wife, and between the two of us, I am there 7 days a week because all the extra help and needed help that they need coming in, I'm the one, and I love the responsibility of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Morfin. Again, I want to say thank you to the board today for a little bit of your opposition to our charter. Thanks to that, we have accomplished many things on the terms of equity and enrollment, which I'm very proud of. I really want to thank the OSA leadership to making the necessary changes to make our school more equitable. And I'm really excited to see, hopefully, you guys approve our charter, because I think there are many things that we can improve on. And as being one of the best schools in Oakland, I think there are things that we can improve on, and equity is one of them. And I'm excited for this phasing out of the addition process. I believe that every kid in Oakland should have access to our school, and I believe that this is the right thing to do at the moment. So I want to thank you both, the OUSD board and the leadership, to seeing this as an opportunity to help more kids in the Oakland community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wyling Huber, and I'm here to speak in favor of the renewal of the OSA charter. But as a longtime organizer in the Oakland community, I also want to echo the call of the community members who are here today, who spoke earlier. I agree that there should be no more school closures in Oakland. We need a school, Oakland needs a school like OSA that is so singularly focused on the arts program. OUSD has some amazing arts programs and visual arts, theater, music, etc., but OSA takes it to a very special step of super specialized instruction in a single art. One of my daughters is a visual artist. She takes 2 hours a day of drawing, painting, sculpting, and each year as she stays in OSA, she'll have a richer and richer program that will go up to 2 to 4 hours a day. In high school, some kids, that's what they get up every day to understand. And I want to echo everything that Karen Morfin just said. We act together. We work together at the APT, the parent-teacher organization, that it was a very grassroots effort to make the decision to phase out auditions, which I very much support, and it came from the goal of making our school even more diverse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Tai Min. I'm 15 years old and I'm in the 10th grade, and I'm here to speak in favor of Oakland School for the Arts being renewed. OSA is where I've grown up for the past 5 years. I know 5 years is barely anything in the grand scheme of things, but when those years are spent in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, there's a lot of growing up to be done. In that time, I've made friends and learned lessons that I'll never forget about art and activism and interpersonal relationships, and there's not a single place I can think of where I'd prefer to have had these experiences. But I don't want to talk about the opportunities I've had or the quality of my education. Those things have already been said. I want to talk about my experience with the diversity and equity challenges at OSA, which I think are the most important issues our school is facing, but also the ones where I've seen some of the most positive growth. In the 6th grade, OSA was already much whiter and more middle class than it was at our founding, but the students hadn't really fully noticed it yet. But around 3 years ago, it started becoming a real conversation happening among the students and teachers at OSA. As we learned about gentrification in our classes, we saw how it was reflected in our student body. But instead of just watching it happen or complaining or becoming resentful, I saw a significant change begin to happen. That year, we saw the creation of affinity groups like the Black Student Union, Latinos Unidos, and the group that I'm the most active member of, APISU, or the Asian Pacific Islander Student Union. Here began conversations of safe spaces, how a school that was originally founded for us as students of color, especially for Black and brown students, didn't seem to belong to us anymore. But we didn't sit still and just let it happen. Students continued to found the Women of Color Club and Brothers of Color clubs, and the Board of Students of Color appeared, which I'm a member of, and all of these groups doing amazing work were wholeheartedly embraced by the school's administration, faculty, and student body.
That's great. Thank you. If you could just, if we'd love to see the comments, can you email them to us? That would be wonderful.
Okay, thank
you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Paulina Gonzalez Brito. My son is a 10th grader in instrumental music and has been there since 6th grade. I'm here to support the charter renewal for Oakland School for the Arts. And I want to say that I support the Oakland community in opposing any more public school closures in Oakland. My son is on the autism spectrum and struggles with mental health. For many years, we struggled with the special education services and the mental health services at OSA under the previous leadership. Under the new leadership, parents fought and organized and won an equity platform that includes parent voting seats on the board who are advocates for underserved students. We also won training for all staff who come in contact with students with disabilities, including arts teachers and security, and an early warning system and strengthening child find obligations. Our experiences this year are extremely positive and supportive with OSA SPED and mental health supports, and of course all the teachers and educators. Therefore, I support the charter renewal for OSA because of this strong equity platform. Lastly, we expect the OSA board will seat parents and students on the OSA school board before any decision is made on the new ED at the school, or we will be back. Please support the OSA charter renewal.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maury Reardon, and I'm also a member of the APT, and was involved in the creation of the equity platform that a few of the parents have talked about. And I want to, I just want to transparently say this has been a time to have self-reflection at OSA, and we've hit some rough spots. We have some work to do, and just acknowledging that this is not a perfect school, but it is an amazing school for so many kids. And I something that doesn't get talked about so often, as a transgender parent who has faced discrimination and had kids in my community face discrimination and violence. OSA is a safe home for queer students, for trans students, and there are quite a few at that school. And I think that matters, and those are kids from every community that have a safe home there. I want to urge you to renew our charter, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Naomi Aguilar. I'm a 6th grader at OSA. I love my school, so accept the renewal.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Breslau. I'm an OSA parent. And I want to say something about the value of students who are trained in language and arts and creative arts and all forms of expression at the time that we live in right now. And, the arts are not incidental to the development of people who are essentially citizens and activists. And these are students who train their voices, who lift their voices, who raise their voices, and they make their voices heard. And I'm not talking just about at the stage or here at this microphone, but also on the street and in the Capitol and in the community. And these are students who are growing to be, masters of language and expression and creativity, and they're exactly the kind of young people we need in this community and in this country right now. And they're getting an amazing education at OSA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alessandra Mohar. I'm a sophomore at Oakland School for the Arts.
I am a low-income student of color from West Oakland, and I went to Lincoln Elementary in Chinatown. And honestly, at OSA, sometimes I feel a little alone being one of the few low-income students of color, but I have grown a lot. I have found my road to activism by joining the Oakland Youth Commission, Filipino Advocates for Justice, and API Legal Outreach. So I'm just very excited for and encouraging you to renew our charter so that more low-income students of color can go to OSA and build and have a great home there. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service on the Youth Commission.
Hi, my name is Kumar Butler. I'm a teacher at OSA. I've been there for a year, and I would just like to recommend that you renew this charter, because I think it's within the interest not just to the people here presently, but to the whole city of Oakland. And I've been an educator and a mentor to youth for the past like 6 years. And I just think I'm here present for the youth rather than anybody else, and I think the benefit of renewing this would only help them and the future children of Oakland. Thanks.
Thank you.
Love Life. Every chartered school that you have spoken about tonight, African American children are performing lower than any other of all the groups, subgroups. Every school, African American children. Now, this school is one of the schools that has a social economic issue where the higher social economic groupings are there and lower economic groups are not getting in. Whites are only 10% of the school district of Oakland, but they're 42% at this school. And one of the things I'm going to ask y'all to do is look at this school. I go to every council meeting there is. And on Tuesday, I look out the window, and these children do not have a sufficient PE program. They come over in front of the city hall, and they're just running around on their phones, talking. There's no PE going on at that school. So they need to do that. But I do want to say, I like the way that they included the complaints regarding their school from 2015 to 2019. In fairness, they were able to look at their problems and put them on paper, so that was good. But every African American at every chartered school tonight is failing academically or below par. And please stop using people of color. Please stop using that term, people of color. My grandmother and I was called colored people.
Thank you.
When you use people of color, you do not get a chance to see who you're talking about. Please stop using
Is there any further public comment?
Hi, my name is Claudia Hung Haas, and I'm a parent of 2 daughters at Oakland School for the Arts. And they are very happy to be there because of the arts. They get to spend 3 hours a day, one in music and one in fashion design. I'm also a teacher in OUSD at the nearby, probably the closest walking distance school, Lincoln Elementary. And I would love to see more kids from Lincoln be able to go there. It's a natural walking distance. It's would be a neighborhood school for them. But I do believe that the audition process has been a barrier to a lot of the monolingual parents. And it's just been a barrier. So I appreciate the direction that the board has encouraged our school to go in to help diversify, and I encourage you to please renew our renewal.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corinne DeLuca, and I am a math teacher at Oakland School for the Arts. I came to OSA last year as a product of public schools in Philadelphia. I yearned to teach math in public schools, having taught in private and Catholic schools previously. I've been teaching math for 19 years. Teaching at OSA has been quite an inspiration. The kids at OSA are the misfits, the artistic kids that haven't been able to find their own place in a lot of OUSD schools. At OSA, they have a home, a place where they feel safe, a place where they can explore all artistic endeavors with this support of professionals, while also having a stellar academic education. Not only do we have extremely high AP passing rates, but our SBAC scores are continually on the rise. The teachers at OSA are committed to helping our students succeed at everything they set out to do. We provide a place where students can become successful artists with guidance and direction. And I really hope that you are going to renew our charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Welcome.
Hi. Paula Zuniga. I have been working in education and youth development for over 20 years. I have a 9th grader. My son entered OSA in the 6th grade. And he is a visual artist and he's thriving. And what I can tell you is that I joined the APT board 2 years ago, completely committed to extending this unique, brilliant learning environment that the teachers, staff, and students have managed to create because, of all the qualities that have been mentioned, there is one that is really, really important to highlight, is that this school is a relationship-centered school.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say that I'm committed to opening up and this school and providing access to all the students here in Oakland. So thank you.
Thank you for your support. Any further public comments? All right, one more.
I just wanted to ask, where do you submit public comments and what is the email?
You can find the email address. That I see your principal here, and she's going to give that information to you tomorrow.
Awesome.
Okay? Thanks so much for your enthusiasm.
Tell her to browse the website.
You can also find it on the OUSD.org website if you look under Board of Education. Okay. All right. Any further discussion by my colleagues? Any questions? Can we call the roll, please? Director Hinton Hodge.
I just have to say that I was moved by the testimony. So I want to appreciate you for doing the work, but I don't know. It is a really interesting reflection of. I think what OSA has had to kind of face for a really long time, right? That it was this very predominantly white, predominantly middle class, affluent group of, I think a lot of people came from Lafayette, the numbers were really very reversed. Yeah, in the beginning years, it was pretty much it was only 40% Oakland people. So where else did they come from? So there has been growth and there has been change, and I'm really excited about it. But I also am witnessing who's actually the voice. I didn't see a real shift in the voice of who gets to speak to the change in the diversity. The young women, the West Oaklander, her testimony is really beautiful, and just appreciating that it's going to just be really important that a lot of those voices are centered. So yeah, I'm excited about your growth and continued development. Oakland is a very interesting place. I guess that's just all I have to say. Thank you. And I can, did we do a motion already?
We've already moved and seconded this. So at this point, can we call the roll, please?
Yes, on the roll call to renew Oakland School for the Arts charter petition. Director Hinton Hodge.
Yes.
Director Yee.
Yes.
Director Torres.
No.
Director Harris.
Yes.
President London.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. At this point, we are going to take up item T3, which is a agreement between the district and the Oakland School of the Arts, with the latter agreeing to join the Common Charter School Student Enrollment Application System for the term July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2025. So the same terms as the charter. And can I invite our staff up to give a quick overview of this agreement? Can I have a motion first?
So moved.
Excuse me. Moved by Director Harris.
Second.
Seconded by Director Yee. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sonali Murarka. As you mentioned, this agreement outlines a commitment from OSA to join the Oakland Enrolls Common Charter Schools application platform on a timeline that mirrors the phase-out of their audition process. The agreement includes a statement that failure to comply with the agreement would constitute a breach of the charter school's renewal petition. Staff recommends approval of this agreement and are happy to answer questions.
Colleagues, any questions? Director Yee.
Well, I can't, I have to do the trifecta and say that in 2000, when then Mayor Jerry Brown proposed OSA, I also was on his list of skeptics. And 3 years later, when I became on the school board, he pointed me out at the mayor's office, at the rotunda, as that guy who hates my charters. And so please tell the former Governor Jerry Brown that you've seen my evolution over the last 20 years. But really the evolution is a reflection of the work that you are doing now and the leadership which is committed to doing the kinds of things that I think the community will benefit from in the long run. And it's not too late to develop a strong and positive and constructive relationship with those Oakland Public School teachers and schools and career academies that support the very same principles of excellence and the value of art in the curriculum as you do. And I think that's my interest in the coming years, less so only about the technical sides of enrollment and more so about seeing if arts really do transform a community, if arts are really appropriate for everyone, or if arts are narrowly siloed into school systems. I think you would agree that we don't believe that arts should be bounded by institutions, that they should transcend institutions. And if that's your commitment and our commitment, there should be a way to work more closely.
Thank you. Is there public comment on item 19-2692 T3?
Love life. I hate the hypocrisy of the understanding of the value of the arts. And at the same time, we realize that with this focus on testing, that so many schools have lost their band, music, choir programs. And that value hasn't been uplifted the way some people have spoken to it tonight. Because every school, when I was teaching, had band, elementary school, had choir, had even violin, and we had arts programs for gifted and talented children as well, which you don't have anything for gifted and talented children. So I wish you would stop sitting up there applauding things when we're not doing the things we're supposed to be doing. Now, it's great that we have a school that works towards the arts, but every school should have a part of their system, arts. It should be. And I listened, last night I listened to
Thank you.
a
Thank
program
you.
that uplifted the arts, and I have a deeper appreciation for it. And every child should have an opportunity to be in some form of the arts.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Okay. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes, on the motion to approve the agreement with Oakland School for the Arts, Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Yee? Yes. Director Torres? Director Hinton Hodge?
Yeah.
And President London?
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we are holding item S6 until our first meeting in February. So we will move to item T1, 19-2068.
Point of clarification, please.
Yes.
Even when you pull an item according to the Brown Act, because it was on the agenda, you still are mandated to have public comment on that item. You can ask your lawyer.
No, that's not our understanding. We have a
It
different
is,
interpretation.
that is, if it's on the agenda, you can still have, why don't you ask the lawyer?
I am asking the lawyer.
Okay,
and-
well,
and
why are
he-
you saying it before you ask the lawyer?
I'm telling you that the lawyer is telling me that we are not
Okay,
required to
I
have
want to
public
see that
comment
in
on this
writing.
item.
Because I know at city council,
Okay.
when you have an item according to the Brown Act,
We will
you
follow,
can still.
we will follow up with you. Thank you. We're going to move now to item T1.
What do you mean follow up with me?
We
You in
will
violation
send
of the
it to
Brown
you
Act.
and we will send it to you in writing. Thank you.
Jean has her.
We're going to welcome at this point Tara Gard, who's our Director for Human Resources. I believe, I might have it wrong. You'll correct me. But she's going to give us an update on our employee retention survey results. Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms.
Thank
Gard.
you. Thank you, Superintendent and Board. I'm happy to be here today to go over our second annual employee retention survey results and also an update on the work that we've been doing. So I'll start here with how many responses we've received in our survey. So this past year, we did our second annual survey. The completed responses was a little bit down from the first year. I would say that's because we were coming out of our strike and we held off until towards the end of the year. It's harder to get responses, but we still got a really, actually great number of employees responding at over 1,700, and that's completed responses. We actually had 2,300 responses, but some people gave up midway or didn't complete the survey all the way. So from that data, you can see 58% of those responses were from teachers, 25% was from school support staff, 13% central office, and 4% certificated school leaders. We also look at the gender, so 73% were female responses, 22% male, 1% non-binary, and then 4% of people declined to state. And then when you look at the ethnicity, race ethnicity, I would say that we have a pretty good representation of our staff. You can see the numbers there. I won't read them all to you, but I think it pretty well represents our staff. So here is the first thing I want to talk to you about is in the survey, what we do first is combine all employees. So what are the top 5 stay factors for all of our employees? What they've identified as their stay factors. So 81% identified the relationship and culture with students and families. And that's of all the employees, 81% chose that. 78% said relationship and culture, relationship with their coworkers is a stay factor. Lifestyle and benefits, usually that means health benefits for staff. And under relationship and culture, a sense of ownership and control of their work. And finally, relationship and culture, relationship with supervisor. Those are the main 5 stay factors that we got from the data. And I also want to make sure to mention that the survey data is posted. RAD has been our partner in developing the survey. We did it in-house, and they always put up a dashboard so that you can go in and you can look at all of the data on your own. It's on our website, and the public can also. I wanted to also lift up some of our teachers. We do have a lot of text of comments. So one of the comments here in the stay factor is from a teacher who said, so many disadvantaged students who captured my heart has made me committed to OUSD because they need to have good staff, teachers, leaders, training, and role models they can respect and see themselves in, and give an example of people of color. So then when we looked at the leave factors for all employees, the top 5 were basic needs, resources, and supplies, and we did see that last year as a leave factor. Another is housing affordability in the Bay Area, relationship and culture, which is work-related stress, salary and professional growth and development, systems and processes that support them in doing their work. Now, here is where we looked at what are the major stressors. So we've talked now about what are all the ways you want to stay or leave, but what are your major stressors? And if you look at this chart here, you can see 56% said, and that's the highest percentage, workload, too much workload. That was down, so the arrows on the very right of that it's down 1% from last year. Exposure to trauma, and that's up for staff. Uncertain or undefined job expectations, same percentage as last year. Lack of opportunity for growth and development, that's come down some. Other, that you get and responses from the text there, so I couldn't exactly tell you it's other, but they're just saying it's not there. Pressures and responsibilities outside of work has gone up. Relationship with students and families is flat. Relationship with coworkers has gone up. Feeling unsafe at my school or workplace there's been no change, but still 15%. And facing discrimination, harassment at work being 10%, and that's gone down just a bit from last year. Now here's another look at the same data, but just looking at school support staff and what we call the actual drivers. And what this means is we ask employees in the survey, are you leaving or are you staying? And because the survey is confidential, they tend to answer that, right? We're not asking their name or even their school site, so they tend to answer. So of the employees who said they were staying, the top 3 bullet points there are the top 3 stay factors for school support staff. So those that actually said they were staying is because either they were planning to retire, or for personal factors, family responsibilities, health, work-life balance, or school department culture are those top 3 reasons. And for school support staff, the leave factors are personal factors, family responsibilities, health and work balance. You can see how that can go either way. Level of work-related stress, meaningful professional development, growth opportunities are, for those who said that they were leaving, those are the actual drivers that will push them out of the door. And then when we look at school leaders, certificated school leaders, they've named their 3 stay factors as a sense of ownership and control of my work, meaningful professional development, opportunities and training, and extent of feedback about how they're doing on their job. So that's what they're naming. And then their 3 leave factors for those saying they leave: meaningful professional development opportunities, training, opportunities for advancement, career ladder, and extent of racial ethnic conflict. So then I will move on here to teachers. For our teachers, this top 3 stay factors were sense of ownership and control of their work, school department culture, and a sense of being valued, respected, and trusted. Then when you look at the leave factors, you'll see personal factors, family responsibilities, health, work-life balance. You see that a lot. Also in school employees, school department culture, and a sense of feeling valued, respected, and trusted. And why this is important, actually, you might say, wait, they've said people who stay are saying the same thing as people who leave. And that goes to the fact that people have different experiences at different schools. We're a large district. So we need to, and some of our work, which we'll talk about later, is really trying to get at the schools who are having a hard time keeping staff and why, and then those that are doing a great job. And it comes through on how our teachers are responding. Okay, so here is good news. I feel like it's good news, actually. It's not great news, but it's good news. We have, since Superintendent Johnson Trammell has been here and pushing on retention and how we care for our employees, we've actually seen a shift in our retention numbers. So we've been able to creep up here since 2016-17. And this is our current retention dashboard, which RAD actually just published today. So you can see it publicly. It says there it's a draft, but it's out publicly now. So we have increased our retention rate for teachers returning to any position by 2.5%, and remaining teachers by 2%. And some people might say that 2% is not a significant number in statistics, but quite frankly, if you think about all that we've gone through over these past 3 years, I would say that that's significant. Okay, so when we get to this slide, I wanted to get us a look at our teachers of color, or I heard one of the community members say not to say that, so we will say diverse educators. And before we dive into this, we all know how important it is to find teachers who mirror our students, and that is what we should be doing. But I want to take a minute to ground us in what the landscape is looking like for teachers in California. So if you just listen through this with me, there are currently 306,000 teachers in California. Of those credentialed teachers, of those 306,000 teachers, 190,000 identify as white, and 63,000 of them identify as Latino, Latinx. 11,918 are African American, identify African American. I'm only going to stick for this presentation with those three ethnic backgrounds, because we can go further down, but it's gonna. So with that, because I want to point this out, with the 63,000 Latinx teachers in California, 1,173 are in Alameda County currently. And we in Oakland employ 342. So that's 29% of the current credentialed teachers in California that are in Alameda County. And then 16% of our teaching staff identifies Latinx. And we know that there is work to do there. And then for African American teachers, 11,918 in California, 967 credentialed African American teachers in Alameda County, and we in Oakland employ 435 of those teachers. So that's 45% of what is considered to be credentialed teachers, and they are 20% of our teaching staff. And the reason I wanted to point that out is because it's really it is about recruitment, but it isn't. It is about how we grow our teachers, how we get students involved in wanting to be a teacher, how we break down some of the barriers of teaching, and we'll talk more about that in the work that we're headed to. We have also, in our hiring this year, we've increased the number of Latinx teachers we hired by 14%. just this past year. For African American teachers, we did not make an increase. It was the same as the previous year. And then looking at, so here, why I have this slide up here is because you can see that in 2016-17, there was a decrease of teachers of color. I mean, that our retention rates were significantly down. So we were able to make a pretty big shift up, and we've been doing that with African American teachers. But then when you can look further into that detail, and when you do, you could do it on the dashboard, you would see that our increase is really with African American male teachers. African American female teachers, there's a bit of a decline. So we want to get at why that is. And then for Latinx teachers, it's the men who are impacting that decline that we see this year. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to take you through what we presented in 2018-19. On the left side of the screen is when we first presented on our retention survey, we named for the board what driving improvements we thought we got from that. And then now I want to talk to you about, so I've listed that there. That's exactly what we said in 2018-19 and what we've done and are doing now. So our first, in 2018-19, we talked about organizational resilience, and we said that we would work on a 5-year recruitment and retention strategic plan in a cross-functional group. And since that time, we've done a lot of work. We have not finished a 5-year plan, and some things have changed, but changed for the better. And that is the focus. So superintendent strategic plan names organizational wellness. And why that's important is because however we're going to impact retention in this district is an effort not just in talent, but across departments and in schools. So we, with organizational wellness, there's a strong partnership with community schools, particularly Mara Larson Fleming, who's the director of health services. She has helped work on the staff wellness piece, and we have worked together with Nicole Knight has some input, Raquel. We're working on this organizational wellness plan, and in that we will tackle recruitment and retention, diversity, educator growth and development, and the things that we're hearing from our retention survey. We have the data to back it. We've done listening campaigns, and we're now at the point where we're bringing ourselves back together to get that strategic plan done and in place so that we can bring that back to the board. And next, I want to bring up Sarah Glassband, who's a director of recruitment and retention, and she's going to talk about that second driving improvement.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here with you all. And I want to just start by grounding us in our values, which really revolves around keeping and growing our own. As another proud OUSD graduate, we know that we can support students. It's been mentioned several times tonight by keeping and growing representative and diverse educators at all levels of school systems to support our students. So here are some of the ways that we have secured more investment in that process, because it actually takes quite a bit of funding to support tuition, to support debt relief, to support test preparation, to support test fees, to support teachers in staying in Oakland. So we're standing on the shoulders of Teach Tomorrow in Oakland, which some of you probably know well as Oakland Teaching Fellows. We stand on the shoulders of initiatives that have existed in Oakland Unified, and so we're building on a knowledge base that exists. It's not new. And Grow Our Own programs exist nationally, so we're also learning from consortia that are larger than our city. In 16-17, we had an after-school to teacher pipeline and newcomer residency through Oakland International. 17-18, we launched the Classified to Teacher program, which supports para-educators and instructional support specialists in becoming teachers, as well as launched the Maestros pipeline. Of those 4 pipelines, the After School to Teacher program as well as Maestros were philanthropically funded. The funding sunsetted for those programs, and now we're working to relaunch the programs by seeking additional philanthropic dollars. We know how important both of those programs are. In last year, we were able to secure funding for 4 new programs. An Oakland teacher residency, which supports STEM and SPED teacher residents, which will bring in $560,000 annually for 4 years. The Local Solutions Grant, which is specifically targeted to special education teachers. That supports, we worked really closely with a special education teacher committee appointed and led by OEA members, and we currently have a joint committee with OEA to help administer those funds. And that provides debt relief for current special ed teachers. It provides tuition support for special ed interns. It provides testing support and test prep for special educators serving with waivers and permits. And it also provides for a substitute to teacher pipeline, specifically for special education students. We also are really grateful for the generous support of the Salesforce Foundation for middle school career ladder development. And if you can imagine a world where we're supporting our high school graduates to earn a BA, supporting people with a BA to earn a credential, people with a credential to become teacher leaders and principals, and new site principals to receive mentorship and induction support, that's what Salesforce has granted to us this year at $738,000, which also supports a dedicated talent development associate who is specifically focused on keeping and growing middle school educators. So really excited about all of those new programs. The last thing I want to mention is that Salaja Suresh and Carmelita Reyes have worked really hard to develop a newcomer administration pipeline that is through Reach Institute. And so that's another newly funded program. I do not take credit for it. They have done amazing work. We're also really working hard to address the institutional biases and barriers embedded in the teacher licensure process. Some of the data we see about who's in front of our students actually is about the teacher licensure process and not about who wants to be in front of our students. So I think it's important for all of us to think about the way that that impacts who we can keep and grow. And just want to say lastly that all of these programs are about creating more representation so that our students are better served in Oakland.
Okay, so I'm going to move you to the third item, which we said.
And we would like to
Go
wrap
quicker?
this item
Okay.
up quickly, soon.
Okay.
Not quickly, but soon.
I'll speed through. Okay. We said here that we were bringing in Alma Advisory Group to help us do a look into our work in talent. They did come in when I began leading talent a few years ago. It did not have as many components as it does now, so we were able to bring in new teacher support, leadership growth and development, teacher evaluation into talent, into mixing it with benefits and other things. So we did good work with Alma and got feedback, including from the board. Affinity groups that is work that we have to begin and get to. We just could not get to it this past year. Rewards and recognition, we brought back honoring our own, and we're doing some other recognition, service pins and tenure recognition, and trying to work with school sites on just how to say thank you to your employees. Review of supplies and resources, we have not done that, but we have Luce here, who I'm excited to work with, who can help us really dive into. We hear that teachers say they don't have enough of their basic supplies, but we also know that the district does provide supply budgets to schools, so we just want to look at what's happening. Is it a basic supply or is it just more that they wanted that, is outside of that budget. So we will be looking at that this year. Targeted meetings with high retention schools to inform best practices. We did meet with some schools like Edna Brewer, Elmhurst at that time, Met West, because they are able to retain their teachers. And this year it's a lot about getting to the schools who are having a difficult time and what our learnings have been and how to support them better. And then finally, with new teacher support, there's a focus there on mentorship. So we have a partnership with the New Teacher Center and have scaled up supporting approximately 360 early career teachers across OUSD. And they receive mentors, and those mentors are either retirees from Oakland or current teachers in Oakland. So I will end there. You have questions?
Thank you. That's quite a presentation. There's a lot to unpack, so we may need a couple of rounds. But Director Torres, would you like to kick us off?
So I was hoping to be able to ask a question halfway, because when I was reading this, I was a little confused about how on both sides are the same, whether it's certificated, whether it's teachers, which you called out a little while ago about the fact that the same thing is on both sides. And I guess when I read it, I thought, okay, somehow there's got to be an answer to professional development is on the stay and professional development is on the go, a leave, whatever. Or another one that was on both sides. Professional development was on both sides, so they're leaving for something better. School culture was on both sides. So what that made me think as I was reading it, and then as you were talking, seeing it again, was the idea of having a breakdown by race for teachers especially, but also by school. Because a happier school probably performs better, probably is more affluent, it's probably even above 580. We can kind of guess what schools they are, right? They have high retention. I mean, my daughter went to these Montclair, Montero, what have you, tech, but that seems like additional data that we almost need to have, even if it's not by race, but by school, and then we know who's in that school, right? Without disclosing people's identity.
We can do it by race, but we don't ask the school.
Yeah.
There's been so much distrust, and
Right.
we want people to answer.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, if I'm the only African-American teacher at the school and you want me to put the school, I'm not going to put it.
True.
So
Well, that's why I'm
that's
thinking
why we
maybe
haven't,
we don't
but
do
we've-
race, but we do by school. I don't know.
Mhm.
Somehow,
Okay.
somehow it's hard. The other question I had is to look at the extremes. So where are the extremes, if we were able to get some data by school, the extremes of like great retention and lowest retention,
Oh, yes.
and then study those to figure it out, right? I do appreciate the data about 1,173 Alameda County Latino teachers, and why we're only capturing 342 is something I'd be curious to know why, whereas with the African American teachers, we're capturing about 45% of the total of 967. 435 is about 45%. So I think you said it's only 29% of the Latinos. So 45, 29, I mean, I'm just curious how that's happening. Other than what I've known is Latino teachers have stayed for just a couple years and left because the culture is just so white, and the school has, and most of these are men, they haven't felt welcomed 2-3 years into it, still don't have conversations with anybody in the teaching force, so they leave.
Well, we have a meeting. Sarah and I are meeting with Len tomorrow to hopefully really look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got this data from RAD, so I want to spend some time really thinking about what those reasons could be.
And I don't know about Len being, I mean, Len is
Len
fine.
is a starting point.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to recommend, for instance, a friend of mine who's African American is doing great work at Sac State, recruiting students from the high schools who want to go into education. And when they first did this with the Sacramento high schools, they got all white kids. And they said, wait, we want Latino and African American kids to go into teaching. That's the gap. So the second and third and fourth year, they've been getting students at Sac State who want to be teachers, who are students of color. And so I wonder about, there's a Cal State East Bay program, and I think a lot of my students in District 5 graduate and go to SF State. So I think there's a huge African American and Latino population of Oakland Unified kids going to SF State. So I don't know if there's a way to create another pipeline there since it's so close.
Okay.
And their kids living at home. But I feel like we could model that Sac State program, but be very intentional instead of letting principals send people who look like them, which is more white teachers, and they didn't really think about that, but that's what they got the first time.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, if you can connect
I could connect
me,
you to this
I would
Dale,
love to do.
Dale
Yes.
at Sac State. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
we'd
you.
love to connect.
President London, can we keep going?
Yes, I'm sorry. Keep going. Director Yee.
Well, first of all, thank you for the data, and I came across the same observation as Director Torres about being plus and minus. And so my first reaction to it was maybe it has to do with the school. And then as she was talking, I expanded it to 3 potential variables. One variable is the school culture, school leadership, that sort of thing. The second is the population the school serves. Is it serve a neighborhood? Is it served by lottery or choice? The third is by teacher experience, the teacher's own experience around the culture of the school, regardless of the leadership. So I think it's actually super interesting to have the whole data set and to do a simulation and say, let's see which one of these items it could be. So each of these 3 is actually, you could model around several schools. Like I'm thinking in District 4, for instance, you know, there are schools in District 4 where teachers never leave. Every teacher is retired out of the school. Mm-hmm. So you would guess that their responses would have something to do with satisfaction. But we don't know if the satisfaction has to do with their leadership, with the students they teach, with the culture of either innovation or support in the school. So that seems to me to be the next step from the data, because the data highlights, as Director Torres says, that you have the very same issues on both sides of the fence on a continuum. So it just becomes a totally interesting now next step, because some things you can do something about, like let's say change teacher assignment policies. You know, you could change, or as some districts tried before, 5 years and you're out of the school and you rotate schools. So there's all kinds of ways you could imagine changing the teacher workforce if it was about teachers. If it was about neighborhood, maybe you're talking about changing neighborhood boundaries of student assignment policies. So seeing the data is less satisfying than thinking about how that data reflects school policies that we take for granted. And so this goes back to the Director Hinton-Hodge earlier, thinking about what is it that we want to actually produce. And so, that's what I'm looking forward to, less a third survey and more of some speculation about what we think are the root causes for these differences. And then just quickly, one of the things that was mentioned about the challenges is teacher housing. And so one of the things I've thought about is some aspect where we tap available resources for teacher housing. For instance, we've talked about affordable housing projects, which are relatively low, but a second might be something where we tap retired teachers and other professionals in the district who may, because of their age, like myself, have empty bedrooms and spaces in our houses. Would we be able to actually generate something like that? And I understand there's a pilot of that somewhere in South County, but as a person who happens to often have an extra space, teachers who are regularly on contract would be a very appealing tenant for me, because they have a job, they've been fingerprinted, and we know something about the culture of the work that they do. So I would like to see something focused on teacher housing as being a response to be added into this survey in the future, which would say something like, would you, if housing is a problem, is this a solution?
in the data, there are additional questions around housing. And I just want to say that the organizational wellness plan is informed by this survey. So the strategies that you'll see in there is informed from what we're learning in the survey.
Right. Well, so I would say, for myself, I think that deeper dive that I'm suggesting, so that we don't jump to solutions in search of problems, but we look at the problems and understand them with a complex set of variables. And so that would be really helpful to me if in the next presentation of this, you would say, well, we're pursuing why the same issue of culture reflects on both sides. Because if it has to do with the trauma that the kids bring, which influences the satisfaction of the teacher, which many of them talked about family trauma, that's something that's not necessarily avoidable for new teachers because of the neighborhood policies, but it could have something to do with teacher assignment and teacher valuing teachers for particular skills. Or maybe it's, look, you work in a traumatic school setting for 2 years, and you get priority to the selection of the next site. Because we recognize that you can't do this for 5 years. Right. So there's all kinds of things like that that I'm hoping to hear. But thank
Next, Director Hinton Hodge.
You said, sorry, let me turn off my. You said that you were gonna do some more disaggregation, and so I won't take up too much repetition around Director Torres's and Yee's point around the schools, because I think that the satisfaction, the experience of a MAC teacher perhaps compared to an Ojai or Chabot versus Prescott. Like those environments are really different in a lot of ways. It is a hot potato, but I think some of the energy that we haven't always talked about, like for example around Kaiser, right, is that it's in a different environment, right, versus Sankofa where there's a bus line and there's all that kind of thing. And so, the experience for teachers and their environment is really important, right, and it has an impact. So anyway, some more disaggregation around that, I think, around schools would be lovely to know. Then I'm always curious as to, where, because I don't see in the audience, for example, any folks represented by collective bargaining. And so I'm like always curious, like what is the partnership then with Oakland Education Association? How do they respond to this data? If at all there is a cooperative, relationship, that kind of says like, hey, this is our people and this is what's going on for them. So how does this kind of translate back to people?
I feel like we have a strong partnership with, actually with most of the unions. OEA sits at the table with Sarah on our pipelines, growing our own program. Nice. We went through the process. We did it with teachers, so nice. It's been positive. Nice. Yeah.
So congratulations, Superintendent, for being a part of that bump, and just consistency around leadership. And I feel like you're constantly saying it's hard work, but you've been incredibly diligent around shifting the culture and building a team to do that. So thank you.
Director Harris. Sure, Director Torres, let's go back to you.
So I wanted to see if I could get the information that Sarah shared about the different grants, the different programs they're tied to, because you said it really fast and it's getting late, we're tired, but I definitely wanted to see that, and then maybe even have a conversation about that. At least I didn't see it in this when I first read it. Maybe it's in the appendix? Or
no,
right?
No, we can add it to the superintendent's update.
That would be helpful, because I definitely wanted to see it, and then potentially when I reach out to someone like my friend Dale at Sac State to talk about their program, because it's 4 years old now that they've been recruiting from the high school and they've been recruiting from within the Sac State campus.
Okay.
So people who are studying math, they've recruited them into the education department. People who are studying English or whatever else, they're recruiting them from within the campus and within the high schools to go into teaching mindfully. And the other thing is the work I did with Tony Thurman, state superintendent, it's been a lot of comment around male teachers of color, but also the issue around the testing and the bias for people to become teachers. So I think this might be a critical juncture in the teacher shortage crisis and this being a large district. So there's probably a need to make the statements or case in front of the governor and those,
I know Sarah wants to get up and
legislators.
say
Yeah,
something.
because that's a big issue, right?
I'm ready.
Yeah, no, they're ready for you. So no,
I'm
that's a
ready,
big
and
issue for
we are
them.
collecting data, and we
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
testimonials.
So we need to get up there as Oakland and other big districts and start putting that forward because it's getting to a critical mass of teacher shortage, right?
And wherever those opportunities are, please let me know, and I'll be happy
Yeah, I think we
to
should
bring
just talk
that momentum.
offline. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I would like to offer a couple of comments as well. Ms. Glassman, to your point about wanting to be in dialogue with the California Department of Education and other legislators, I encourage you to work through Valerie Good. She has the relationship with our Sacramento presence, and we would be happy to strategize that. I should know what was in the legislative platform, but if you haven't looked at that, please do. I think we have information on recruitment and diversity in our platform. I just want to say that I'm very excited that we are having a more intentional approach to supporting first-year teachers and hopefully helping them focus on classroom management, which I understand. I know I would be daunted by that if I had the patience to be a teacher. But also very interested in the career ladder work that you're doing. And so I really want to encourage you to keep working on that and keep us posted on all of this. It's very exciting work. And as you can see, there's a lot of enthusiasm from the board about it. So thanks a lot. And we'll go to Director Yee, and then we'll take public comment.
President Lynn, if you might, a point of privilege on this. This may seem tangential, but item T5, 19-2624, is an application for variable term program waivers for CBEST, BCLAD, and so forth. And I wondered if you have some comment, because frequently this comes up on our board agenda at the end of the meeting about these. Nearly every board meeting, we apply for these variable term waivers. So is this part of the solution or part of the problem?
Both. I would say it's a both and issue. Sure. It's both that the licensure process requires tens of thousands of dollars of investment, in part including taking a series of potentially 5 exams that are high stakes. And what you're doing is you're waiving those exams when you approve the waivers and permits. And what we're doing is saying you're entering the profession. We know that 60-ish% of the people that we're approving are people of color, most often from the community, and people that we want to retain and grow. So how can we support them through that process? Sometimes we actually can't, because the process itself is not amenable to their set of expertise, which then means that they lose that job. So we might have this churn of people who are not making it through a licensure process that we're working really hard to support.
You would say that the people that we apply for the waiver are likely to be in the very categories that we as a board want to encourage, namely people of color and local, that they consist of the bulk of the applications in this category.
I think that there's a way that the people with permits and waivers are talked about from a very deficit-based lens, and there's a way that we can actually turn that on its head a little bit and say, actually, these are the people we need to invest in keeping and growing, who will ultimately stay, and we need to continue to find that data, actually. And we're in partnership with RAD. You see this data of retention results from the survey, as well as retention by site. The next question is, what about retention by pipeline program and support structure? So that's what we're working on with our research and data team.
All right, I just want to also add that we started a support structure for teachers with emergency credentials. So we have someone on our team who's working with new teacher support and intentionally goes out and helps those people that you're approving to get tutoring. We have books in the office. We're just done a lot of intentional work to help support them so that they can pass their test.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to offer public comment on this item?
Love Life. The information made available on this subject matter did not include the Teach for America teachers. And I find that to be something very important because my understanding they only commit to 2 years as a prerequisite in their contracts. And how many of them stay beyond that? It's just an interesting point to bring to the table. I'm also deeply concerned when I looked at the chart of African American teachers and how there's been a tremendous decline related to retention of African American teachers. But I also have to bring to your attention that Prop 209 says that you keep talking about we need more Latino teachers, we need more African American teachers, but you don't have the ability to address that issue because Prop 209 say no preferences related to public employment. So why are we having a conversation about things you can't control? Is my concern. And
thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. Oh, Mr. Mordecai, thank you.
Jim Mordecai speaking as an individual. I'm just responding to the comments of the previous speaker, and I think that's an important issue that needs to be agendized and discussed. What can you do? Because I try to push integration in terms of, and my primary focus is the economics, because I think the Supreme Court, and I'm not talking about the state Supreme Court, I'm talking about the federal Supreme Court, has sort of set up a roadblock where you can't get, we'd have to go back to the future if you were to deal with issues of race. We can't do that. We have to go ahead. And I think that still legally the issue of the economics, if you look at economics and if you look at what's happening here in Oakland, is that just look at the economic factor. We have so much more data nowadays that we can make assignments based upon economics. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? This is not a voting item, so at this point we will thank you very much for your work, and we really appreciate hearing from you. We're going to move now to item T4, 19-2618. This is an application for provisional internship permits for a number of our employees. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Director Yee. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Torres. Director Hinton-Hodge.
So I just want to note that this is something that we actually do every board meeting where we have to approve. And so I appreciate the earlier presentation that kind of talked about the struggle around that. But in the same way that we struggle with it inside of our larger system, know that inside the charter school system, there's also a similar kind of struggle without maybe is the same kind of like resources or even safety net around, because in the event, because I'm actually thinking about one of the schools in my neighborhood right now, that like the principal and the assistant principal are now responsible for classes because they don't necessarily have their teachers getting the waiver for CBEST or emergency credentials or whatever the case may be, whatever these next levels. And so if ever we get to a place of 606, or even thinking about how we authorize and support teachers across any system, this might be an area too to think about. I can imagine at the state level, people will only want to talk about teachers inside of traditional systems, but it may actually make sense to do, because these are going to be teachers that move cross systems probably anyway. So, so again, I just want to keep highlighting that, like, as we point fingers at charters not doing particular kinds of things or being in precarious positions, I'm learning more and more they don't actually even have the safety net of a board that can say, hey, we're going to give you a waiver and allow you to be in our classrooms of our most needy kids across our system. So just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
Yes, ma'am. Love Life. If we're going to continue to have these ongoing discussions about what is going on in the chartered schools, we need to have some data to support. We can't have people just standing up or sitting down making statements about what's happening in the charter school system, and it's not supported by any reports, any data, any method of validating the conversations that are being held around what's going on in chartered schools. So in the future, if you're going to have this ongoing validation of the legitimacy of chartered schools, give me the documentation, give the public the documentation that says this is actually true.
Thank you. Can we call the roll call, please?
On the roll call to approve item 192618, Director Ng?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge?
Yes.
Director Yee?
Yes.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
And President London?
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. We move now to item T5, 19-2624. This is an application for variable term program waivers, CBEST B-Clad M program.
So moved.
Whoa. Moved by Director Harris, second by Director Yee. Is there any comment by board members? Any public comment? Any public comment on item T5? Okay, it looks like there's no public comment. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes, on the roll call to adopt 192624, Director Hinton Hodge?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Yee? Director Yee, you're not there?
He stepped
Okay.
away.
And Director Ng?
Yes.
And President London?
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. We move now to adoption of the pupil discipline consent report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Director Harris,
Second.
second by Director Ng. Can we call the roll, please?
Yes. No problem.
Is there any public comment?
On the roll call, Director Ng?
Yes.
Director Hinton Hodge?
Yes.
Director Yee's not in the room. Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
And President London?
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
Thank you. Regular board member reports. Board members, do you have anything you want to share? Director Hinton Hodge.
Sorry. I was too quick on the move. January 28th, there is going to be a facilities master planning meeting. That will be at West Oakland Middle School, 6 to 8 p.m. And it's being facilitated by MK Think. And so anyway, that you'll get more information about that, but everyone should come. And then it is really important to me that the charter schools that are in District 3 are also attending and a part of those meetings as well. So further information will hit the airwaves. And I think D7's having a similar meeting as well.
If I could clarify, there's actually going to be three regional meetings, and then some some board members are going to be doing additional meetings. I'm going to be doing 2 meetings in North Oakland. I will be I'll be hosting a community meeting on this topic at Claremont Middle School, at Hillcrest on January 23rd and at Claremont Middle School on January 6th. Are there any other board reports? Director Yee.
I would like to announce and honor the life of Melvin Joseph Cowell, Caughell, who died on December 16th. He was actually one of our school board members from I'm looking this up, from 1961 to 1978, a period of 18 years during a very momentous time in the history of the Oakland schools. And subsequent to that, not only was he a graduate of Castlemont High School, class of 1941, he served time in World War II in the Pacific, and he continued to be an active supporter of Oakland schools through his entire life, mainly through the Oakland Rotary. His memorial service will be at Rossmore, 1600 Rossmore Parkway in Walnut Creek at 10:30 on Friday. And I would like to ask that we adjourn the meeting in memory of his service and great appreciation.
Say his name again, please.
Mel Cowell.
Mel Cowell.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move now. Any other director reports? We will move now to item X, introduction of new legislative matter. Mr. Mordecai.
Okay, Jim Mordecai speaking as an individual. First of all, I appreciate Dr. Yee mentioning the history and previous school board member. The school board has changed over the years. If you were up there on the day you represented Safeway, you represented other corporations in the district. For whatever reason, that has not taken force. And that gentleman, I can't remember. Maybe Mr. Yee remembers what corporation that gentleman worked for. But
He sold cars at Concord and Selly. I bought one.
I got that one wrong. Okay. But there were a number of individuals on the board at that time that represented the big corporations in Oakland.
Concord and Selly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mordecai.
Point of clarification. With your announcements, are you planning at any time in the near future to meet with the City of Oakland with a joint education committee meeting?
We are in the process of setting the calendar for those meetings.
Not again, y'all. Okay, and then I wanted to say that the Community Policing Advisory Board met tonight at 6 o'clock at the Eastmont Mall Police Station, and you were supposed to have a representative there. I hope you informed them that nobody was available to come.
Oh,
Thank you.
She's so helpful.
All right. With that, we are adjourned at 9:42. Happy New Year.